Should let Flip know it's either us or the tamales.
It's us or tamales. Flip told us that he's eating some tamales.
Yeah, he's like, I'm eating some tamales. I love tamales more than I love hanging out, I guess.
I'm listening to ThE, and this year right here, it's how I get dumb on the left side of it. I'm listening to their live show about them judging how properly neoliberal the church is getting or not. And,
they're right now?
I think it's right now. I mean, I was a little bit behind, but we are live. I don't know if Flip knew we were doing it live. Howdy, anybody out there who's live with us? I don't think anybody's watching. Nobody. You scared them
off. All right.
There's one.
Yeah, we got Christopher.
What's up? Does he I don't know what to say. Does he have his YouTube name and his regular name? Are they
I don't know.
What's up, Blue Mini? And we got some people coming in here and there. And I've got, how do I turn off this delay going off in my ear? Yeah, there's a live one right now about homosexual rescues. Oh, Kyle Dunnigan's going live. We keep going on top of him, but he's doing another one of his episodes about. He hasn't been doing his funny stuff.
Poor Kyle Dunnigan. He's always having to compete with us.
I know. What's it called? Mormon Steak leads some gay rescue. That's what I was listening to. Anybody listen to that? Gay Jared. Ode to Steven Crowder. The Steven Crowder. So you are gay, Jared, on some sort of websites or something, aren't you? And tell people that you're gay for your wife. And
I am gay for my wife. I opened just to see how difficult it'd be. I went to this dating app. It's called ThE, but it's like exclusively for lesbians. I put a bunch of pictures of my actual face and like, nothing womanly, even not even attempting. And you have to like take a certain amount of pictures and then send it in to be verified, like by an actual person. But I got the account verified, and it's just
they can't even say no anyway.
Yeah, now I'm a bona fide lesbian, which I'm also gay. We decided I'm gay because my childhood crush was Elliot Page, who turns out was always a man. So
turns out used to be a woman. That's what turned out. I mean, now this is always the fulfillment of all things. Mm-hmm. Where's Flip at? So. What did he say he's coming? Oh, you just barely posted a quote from Cara Burrell. I hope that our species, with the invention of technology, is waking up to the missing factor of empathy for other tribes.
The invention of technology. I don't know. She seems to think we have this monopoly on empathy. And man, I wish if only those Mormons, I think she thinks that if any Mormon who develops empathy is an ex-Mormon.
Yeah, that's about how it works. Empathy is, ex-Mormoning leads to pure empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Like so many of these things, all you got to do is X yourself out of it, and you're pure empathy. I saw Crowder talk about not gay Jared on. Hold on a second. I want to read that. I want to read that Cara thing one more time, real quick. Where'd it go? I hope that our species, with the invention of technology, is waking up to the missing factor of empathy for other tribes.
The missing factor. It's like we developed a fucking iPhone, so now we can be empathetic because I can look in my pocket and see other people hurting.
For other tribes. All right. not gay Jared. Crowder claims that the not gay Jared thing ended on good terms, which is a lie. But whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows what actually happened there? But
Owen Benjamin tells you what actually happened, which is probably very trustworthy.
it was about pay or money or something like that. I thought Owen would be going off on this, and I checked in with him today, and he's off on a whole rant that he hates Tucker Carlson for some reason. He thinks Tucker Carlson does the oral sex on men, and his whole Instagram is just that, and that's what you get when you got crazy. It's like you think he's got time to dunk on Steven Crowder right now, but nope, he's well and good on to being very obsessed with Tucker Carlson.
Oh man!
But yeah, he did say that. I mean, you could tell. I was watching Crowder during the time when Not Gay Jared left, and you could tell it was sudden and abrupt, and
yeah, it felt pretty sudden when it happened. I never tried very hard to look into it, but I don't know. The Owen Benjamin thing, if that's to be believed, he claims that Sven Computer and Not Gay Jared just went and grabbed all of their shit at night and just left. But
so did you listen to episodes that I popped up the last 2 days?
Which episodes?
The preamble and the episode I did, Kevin. I dropped 2 episodes, and people were talking about them, but
I was gonna watch the Kevin one, but I didn't know there was another one.
Yeah, there's 2, but let me just drop. I mean, they were both after. So I talked with Kevin before our last live stream where we actually talked with Forrest.
Yeah.
So we actually covered a bunch of it, you know, and so then it kind of needed a preamble too, because it was kind of like rehashing out what we already talked about in the live stream. And but I just pulled up some of the clips and some of the things that I've been pointing to, and it's not at all complete. But one of the reasons why tonight we said we wanted to chit chat more about like entertainment and stuff like that is because I feel like I've been getting a little bit too preachy with these overarching themes that I don't even have endpoints to. I mean, I think my just general endpoint is usually that we've got to not be so fast and hubristic and listen to everybody, and except for
yeah, it seems like the general message that we usually are shouting out is just calm the fuck down for a second.
Yeah, calm down and listen to everybody, and because somebody's religious doesn't mean they're out of the game of helping us figure out morals. You know what I mean? And we hate them now. You know? And I think that's about it. And not only that, we turn a lot to them. I got into the French calendar of the Cult of Reason, which I think I showed you before. They came up with this 10-day calendar, and it was all wackadoo and caused a lot of problems. And they couldn't communicate with societies outside of theirs because they couldn't line up with the other societies. And they had like all their time different and all that stuff. And it's kind of just my general message of that is that you had to get rid of the 7-day week because you were so disgusted with your traditions of the past. Because there's God words in that, you know, there's God words in those days, and some people use those days to tell when the Sabbath was, so we just can't have it. But wait a minute, it did kind of like help us kind of map the universe and the time and the months and connect with other societies pretty well and talk with each other. So just because we now don't believe in the God of what are the gods of the weekdays? Those are Thor's Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't believe in Thor now, we must get rid of the word Thursday or even the concept of Thursday because we can do it better because we're smarter.
I thought they all had to do with Norse because I'm pretty sure Wednesday started out as Woden's Day, like for Odin or something.
That's right. Isn't Tuesday?
I'll tell you what, though, you probably experienced this too, but teaching the Sabbath to Spanish speakers or Portuguese speakers is just a bitch when you're a Mormon because
Sábado sounds like Sabbath. Yeah.
No, it is. That's the word for Sabbath. Sábado is Sabbath. So it's like trying to tell them, well, the Saturday is on Sunday. They're like, what the hell are you talking about? It's called. You
had to change. Saturday. I remember we had some explanation. Like it changed in the times of Ichabod Crane or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we had some explanation for it. But it was some old Jewish Sabbath, and it got changed over to whatever it was. But Crowder, I mean, we could keep talking about that until Flip comes. But I mean, I don't know how many TV shows that we're going to go over because I'm sitting here trying to think of literally every single TV show I can think of has been poisoned a little bit. Even if it's in the before times, it's poisoned. But it's in there a little bit in everything. And half of it, I'm like sitting there like, what did I even watch in the past 2 years? And I had a tough time even remembering what the hell I watched lately. But you've been watching Last of Us?
I haven't yet.
I didn't watch the game or anything like that. And the TV show is, I do not fall asleep easily on TV shows. And I fell asleep in that one twice.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's just not keeping my attention very, very well. But maybe it's because I'm zombied out. I mean, you played the game?
Yeah. It's one of my favorite games ever. It's really, really fucking good storytelling. But it's kind of like with
what on earth is this?
What are you guys doing? You're on the internet without me. You're online talking the crap about John DeLynn, yes?
Yes, sir.
No.
I was about to.
I heard you. I was listening to your stream and I thought you guys are as boring as a pile of sticks. What are you talking about?
Well, we were gonna get to John DeLynn. If we got to John DeLynn, would that turn you on a bit more?
I don't know. I was waiting for like esoteric German philosopher crap. This is about the time that I tune in so I can go to sleep. If I have to hear another metaphor about Hegel and the Hegelian, dialectic, I'm going to kill myself. You can only stare into that particular abyss so much.
I'm with you. I'm about to kill myself with the whole entire thing. But do you like it as an evil apostate? Do you think we should dunk on DeLynn more or less? Are you on his side, or are you?
Well, my journey. I've been offline for a while because I had the original story where you're sitting in the pews. And then you're like, listening to the boring church stuff. And then you're like, this stuff is not really factually correct. And, maybe I should prefer to be sleeping in. And so you leave and then you're like, hey, everybody, I'm ex-Mormon. All the rules do not apply to me. And then you're sitting in the group and then people are like, hey, all the white people are racist. And if you try to be colorblind, you are a bigot. And I'm like, what? What? Is this what I have to believe to be here? I guess I'm an apostate. I don't believe it.
Sorry,
I'm double
apostate.
evil. I'm double evil apostate now.
I'm so sorry.
That must be so difficult. I'm so sorry.
I think we should all pause for a moment and reflect on why you are platforming these white guys. You guys are a bunch of white guys.
I tried to justify it, but I can't justify it. I can't justify it just like I can't justify my morals. I can't justify anything.
Well, you have to be apostate wherever you go, I learned one thing that I like is that you have to realize everybody is full of crap. There's not a bad thing, we are all full of crap. We all have colon and it's full of the poopikins and stuff. But it's only these people that forget that they are full of crap that go around making their farts smell like divine approbation, or they fart pure empathy, and so you cannot criticize them,
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's some deep stuff, man. I mean, this is what I was talking about. I got to get off the stupid high-minded philosophy stuff and talk about
you were having a breakdown.
That's right, man. You got to meet with the common people. They can only listen to so much of the critical theory criticism before I listen to you guys a lot. You're
Me too.
oh, gee,
I'm done with it. Yeah.
if only I could, deconstruct how Derrida and Foucault did it. And I'm just like, it reminds me of that story where this guy is listening to the philosopher and and people are like, oh, look, he just like totally deconstructed reality. What do you say to that? And the guy's like, I disprove him thus, and he kicks a rock. And it just like proves that like, you know, the real world is real, separate from whatever the hot air the philosophers can blow or whatever. It's like listening to a physicist be like, you know, really matter is a majority empty space. And so, you know, we could all just like pass right in front of each other. Like if two people shake hands, the hands could pass right between each other because it's mostly empty space. And you're like, you know what? For whatever reason, that doesn't seem to happen like a majority of the time. So perhaps your observations are not actually relevant to the real world. And I feel like that most of the time listening to this crap.
Yeah, I do too.
Flip in the flesh. I've listened to so much Flip. It's amazing. Like he knows so much about the inconsequential things.
Oh, yeah.
Wait a
I
minute.
specialize at that.
Everybody
Everybody thinks that I'm good to have on their trivia team, and I suck at trivia because it's all pop culture, and I don't know any
It's
of that
consequential. Yeah, it's got to be.
He's
Yeah.
pointless on the
Shit that
trivia team
matters to
because he just
people.
sits there talking about the beer. And you know, which Portuguese person will brew a beer that tastes sort of like this, but with like some sort of, you know, crazy weird out ale or something.
Really good
People are
non-alcoholic
curious.
beer in Salt Lake City. A really good non-alcoholic beer in Salt Lake City.
Oh my goodness, we
Peruvian
started him. We started him already. He's
The
already
Peruvian
going.
market. The Peruvian
Oh,
market
he brought up
sells
Peru. Okay. Oh,
I don't believe
two kinds of Portuguese non-alcoholic beer.
next we're gonna hear
non-alcoholic
Mission
beer
story.
at
Look
the
here,
what?
asshole. You're a guest on our platform, okay?
So yes,
Wait a
okay.
minute. Have you checked your privilege? Have you checked it? I want you to check it really quick.
I know
Evil
that
po-
we
wait,
don't have
evil
empathy.
apostate. I guess I don't know what your gender and what your.
It's
race
called
is.
empathy, evil apostate. Try it.
Yeah.
Oh yes, well, you know the reptiles. They can change their gender depending on the temperature of the room. So if I need to, I will take whatever privilege I can get.
That's
I gotta figure out
yeah.
what this character is, because like it's halfway between Triumph, the insult comic, and Mark McKinney's taxi cab driver on Kids in the Hall. You know,
Cheech and Chong. Hey, Flip. I think you've worn the same shirt for the last 3 streams, Flip.
no, it's
I'm
true.
hoping that the laundry is still working at your place.
This is my podcasting shirt. I took it out.
Oh,
of the
yuck
laundry.
it up, gay Jared. You need to comb your hair one day, Jared.
That's what hats are for, asshole.
I think there are food stains on your shirt again. I'm only here to make you all feel bad about yourself, really. I need to humbleize you.
That's okay.
We appreciate. I mean, I appreciate it. What you been watching? You been watching any shows? We're talking about shows tonight.
Oh no, the streeter guy that, you know, he's my roommate. He's all stuck on this, you know, learning about the transgender thing. It's really annoying. He's watching like Swedish and Dutch documentaries about surgeries gone wrong or something. It's really boring.
Yeah. his
What
stuff's
exactly
crazy.
is a
Wild
what,
and crazy
What exactly is
comedy.
a sex? So what's a sex reassignment surgery gone right? What does that look like?
Well, Jared, if you had any empathy and any, you know, non-biased perspective of things, you would realize that for some people, the surgery actually does help them. It's just that there's that percentage of people, the question of which percentage it helps and which percentage are people that are under a temporary fantasy / delusion that will eventually resolve under the weight of their other comorbid psychological pathologies. That is the big question, and people are wondering about that. So it's complicated. I know more than I should.
Hey, get the hell off of this podcast with that transphobia there.
Yeah, no, this is.
Hey, could
QAnon
I ask?
shit.
Could I ask your opinion on this thought? Evil apostate, deepity dragon. I hope that our species, with the invention of technology, is waking up to the missing factor of empathy for other tribes.
You are like Deepak Chopra here. You're dropping the wisdom bombs. Like, it is impossible for any ancient civilization to have had any degree of empathy because they did not have the iPhone. And so, it is good.
Yeah.
I got you. I got you, Jared. Your wife is outed you.
He's right about
Do the laundry
shit all
sometime,
day.
privileged white male.
Not a
They
single
should speak.
thing
Oh shit!
You don't look white. You look green. I mean, I've
Guys,
heard some
look, all
songs about that.
my
Not that
garments, they
easy.
were gray and holy, like the general authorities. Anyway, all right.
Well, not that easy being green, though, right? I mean, everybody's got a tough time.
That's copyright trademark of the green one. Do not let his hallowed words leave your solid lips. All right, you guys probably have serious things to talk about.
No,
I don't want to get in the way of the wisdom.
Not one thing we've ever said is serious.
One thing I was thinking about I want to make is because I was listening to John DeLynn, the story that they were live while I was getting ready. And I want to get the Sarah McLachlan music and just put together all of John DeLynn's I hate doing this job. And then just put the fundraiser on the bottom, you know.
If anybody could save me from this fame and fortune, please do it.
Take
Help
this
an
cup
unlicensed
from me.
clinical psychologist today.
Take this cup from me.
But I also like this the
Hey,
character
Troy.
quote.
Roy, you are the celebrity. You should come on and talk sometime. We could use a regal beard like that here sometime. No offense, Chris.
I want to
Is it a
know,
Regal?
like, can you tell
know
us
the
where
whole
the
one goes.
secrets are in Hogwarts Legacy? Like, if I look behind the door on level 3, is there a health bonus? That's
It's
the
open
important
world.
shit.
There's no level 3.
What do you think
Oh.
about Troy? Troy probably had them kill some dragons in that game.
Oh my god!
No, it could not be. Soon we will set societal norms that it is okay to kill the dragons. This is unacceptable.
Bucko. Dragons are on this world to be slayed.
Yeah, dragons. are
Wait,
the
that is Jordan
representation-
Peterson's voice I am hearing.
Yeah,
Is problematic, I know.
dragons are the
Talking about slaying the
representation.
dragons.
They're the archetype representation of all the things that we fear. It's a snake. It's a fire. It's all that you know.
Yes. Yes.
So what's the dragon that makes us fear the most? You're like, to me, when I look at you, I see a hybrid of John Larson, Carol Burrell, John DeLynn, just like all staring at me going, empathy. And that's what I see when I see a dragon.
Yeah.
Yes, what do you see, Flip? Let me guess.
You're gonna
American
burn the screen
beer.
with the fire.
American beer.
What?
Flip sees versions of American beer and
And Jared, you probably see
a washing machine.
182 trying to act like young kids again or something.
Blink
They were
182
never
blended
young
with a
kids.
washing machine.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite genre of music. Is like 38-year-old men singing about what a nightmare it is to be a kid.
Yes, hello, fellow youths.
Today at work, before the boss got there, when we could still have fun, we put on Stankonia by Outkast. And man, is that problematic.
Well, what do they say in that one?
Oh, well, I mean, all kinds of things. I mean, there's sexualization. They say the N-word more than a few times. Open criminality. They've got a whole song that's basically about how ladies, we intend to use you sexually, and that is literally all. Get used to that idea. I hope you're on board.
They talk
there's
about
you're
that
shooting
in
out a lot of
rap.
problematic shit here, and it looks like Evil Apostate's about to throw up.
Yeah, I can't believe they talk about that in rap. Hey, Jared, I tried to do, and I shouldn't have. I tried to do some Dawkins impersonations in my thing of Dawkins talking about there wasn't a dry eye in the house getting corrected on some sort of scientific thing, but I couldn't Dawkins it.
Oh, even I know that you do not try to impersonate Dawkins when Jared is around. His Dawkins is impeccable, and we all sound like pathetic wannabes.
I'm telling you, I think I
If you go back to burning me, that's a lot more comfortable for me.
I think I can do a pretty good Hinkley, but I'll have to wait and bust it out.
You do a good Hinkley, yeah. I've heard your Hinkley before.
And
Do the
all I
Hinkley
got is
cough?
oh yeah. I got
It kind of just sounds like if you were 90 and going through puberty.
There's a brother.
Jared, your wife is flirting with you on our stream. That is unacceptable.
Man, she's upholding patriarchy.
Especially because her picture is her holding the child. It's uncomfortable and problematic.
I bet she's even
Oh, yeah.
barefoot in that picture.
Oh my god.
Brothers and sisters, I come before you today to tell you that you're not much to look at, but you're all we've got.
Stop looking at porn. I'm just doing old man comic book or old man pimpled teenager from Simpsons.
Oh, it's a doggo.
Oh yeah, old man pimple. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah. Look.
All right, get to the good stuff. Come on, we have chatted and bantered around enough.
Well, we wanted to talk about should we talk about Larson? We wanted to talk about Larson. What do you think about the idea of normalcy bias? Did you hear
Normalcy bias? I didn't listen to all of that. I only listened to the front part.
Oh, it was really, really good and informative, so you should.
He was talking about hold on here. Normalcy bias. But we were either going to talk about that, or just general entertainment of shows we were watching. Have you watched Last of Us, Flip? Did you watch Last of Us?
I did. I watched the 2 episodes that have been released up until today.
You played the game and watched it. What do you think?
I watched the first game, and so then because we were like, let's watch that show and talk about it, and that's the only reason I watched it. And here are all my thoughts. It should take about 45 seconds. It's the game. They already made this movie. It was called The Last of Us. It was a video game from 10 years ago. It was great. Just play that. It's surprising just how much they wanted it. Like, they really made it look like the game, which I guess, I don't know, they could try to make it different, piss everybody off. But they're literally just making
meaningful. I mean, it seems meaningless. It's the same thing. Like, why did they make an Uncharted movie?
Exactly.
Those were already movies.
It's fine. But there's already 10,000 people who have put up The Last of Us cutscenes or the whole game on YouTube. Just watch that. It's all we've already seen this story. It's all great. They did a great job of remaking something we already saw. It's almost like, it's obviously not quite as ridiculous, but it's almost as ridiculous as that shot-for-shot remake of Psycho. Like, remember when they thought that would be a good idea with Anne Heche? Who directed that? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Some hack.
They did that with Lion King. It's a shot-for-shot remake. I was quoting
they did that thing where they made it ultra realistic.
So they made it ultra realistic, but like me and my wife watched it in the theater, and I was like, I grew up on Lion King, and I was quoting it.
Up, Chris.
The first time I saw it, I was quoting it word for word, and then she was like, "How do you know what this is gonna say?" Because they just used the script from the cartoon.
Yeah. It's the same script.
I think the dragon sitting there listening intently. I think the dragon sitting there listening intently makes me laugh hard.
I'm waiting for the moment where we can just tell ChatGPT to make Stable Diffusion, recreate a classic film in a modern style, and infuse it with the message, and that's all we can do. It will come up with it.
No, that's actually that's a great lead into my feelings about Last of Us. It's like if HBO put $300 million into Chat GPT and said, "Make Last of Us a TV show." There you go. That's what we got.
Yes, but it will not have the fungus kiss. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's so. Yeah, those
I tuned in for the fungus kiss.
They added a little bit of dumb backstory. Fungus kiss. I did notice that because that's a scene that they added, not in the game. And I'm like,
it was uncomfortable. It's kind of like kiss?
Oh yeah.
When your girlfriend has eaten a little bit too much kimchi and she's coming in for the smooch, and you're like,
I'll tell you. Look, to give the writers the benefit of the doubt, because I saw that and my first thing was like, "What?
Hey, that's not girlfriend
in the game.
It's wife."
That's not in the game.
No.
Oh.
But I'll give them this: is like the way I interpreted that scene is that her brain, she's starting to lose control, and she knows it. And so part of her is like, oh, I'm part of this fungus thing now. I'm just into fungus kiss. Meanwhile, she's still trying to do the thing to save the people. Spoilers, play the fucking video game. She sacrificed herself to save them.
Who are you talking about? Is this Tess?
Yeah.
Out with it, Jared.
Guys kissing a. Oh, sorry, it's a spoiler for the second episode.
But yeah, no, like
I've played the game. So.
Oh,
well, I mean,
that thing's like, oh
listening.
yeah. But yeah, things about like Last of Us, like so it's like, yeah, like it's a good show because it was already a good video game. But okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
The question I have, hold up. Isn't the video game like industry makes more billions of dollars than the movie industry now? Like it didn't it like outpaced it years ago? So this is like the little guy trying to capture the magic of the big guy with this like the movie off of the game.
Wonder about if it's successful. That's one thing that's always fun about nowadays is that because like when we were kids they published TV ratings. You remember that? Like that was just public knowledge. If you wanted to find out,
they won't ever do it on that streaming stuff. That streaming stuff's floating on fake capital, just like the rest of the technology industry is. But
yeah, because that's things like like I mean, was the Red Letter Media guys, and I'd love to see it. Like, show us your Star Trek numbers, please. I want to see them.
So that show, it came out 10 years ago, and so I'm noticing tropes in it, but I can't really criticize it for tropes because they might have been ahead of the tropes. But one of the main tropes talked about nowadays constantly and stuff like Nerdrotic and those channels are the girl who's the key to everything. And we must save, the girl kind of becomes the MacGuffin that you got to go save the girl MacGuffin. And then there's generally a thing of like this guy has to, raise up or lift up the girl who's the key to everything as the girls go and realize that they're the most amazing, important things that,
slightly tangential because I was thinking about this playing the game. Because if you remember the original one, the person known then as Ellen Page sued them because they say it was her for using her likeness, which is kind of weird because she's like, why would she be upset that they misgendered her like that? Like she should just be like, what? No, that's not me. I'm a guy. I was never a 14-year-old girl. I've only ever been a man.
So in her defense, Ellie looked exactly like Ellen Page.
Yeah, they really did. I kind of interrupted Chris, but as far as the tropiness, because that's the thing is that as I remember playing the game, because that thing's like she's a young girl, she's the key to everything, she's a lesbian, but in the game was all extremely well written and natural. For one thing, the lesbian thing was incidental, okay, and it wasn't shoehorned in, it was fine. And then the other thing that they did that was very important is that, like, she wasn't a Mary Sue. She starts out as a spunky kid, but a kid, and she's dumb and she's impetuous and she has an enormous amount to learn about the world. And one of the things that you can see them doing in the TV show that they are aping point for point in the video game is there's this, this progression of the building of trust between the older guy and the younger girl. And it starts out with, she's like, give me a gun. I can shoot guns. And they're like, no, not you, little girl. Then just like I'm sure it'll happen in the TV show, in the video game, eventually she gets bigger and bigger guns. Please do not insert your own jokes here.
No, Ellie's a great character in the game. She's awesome because I don't know. She does have things to learn. She learns them from Joel, and like
she does learn.
You get
she makes mistakes and she pays for them in the story, and it makes it.
But there's that part where you have to play as Ellie. And you have to play a lot differently than you play Joel. Because if the guys see you, you're a little girl. Like, I don't know, like a 14-year-old girl, they'll just kill you immediately. You have to sneak. You have to, like, use
there's also, like, Skyrim rules. Like, it's not Skyrim rules where gender is meaningless. And, like, you're exact same thing. It's like, no, like, a 14-year-old girl can not choke out a 200-pound man, like, so that's not an option when you're Ellie. When you're the 200-pound man, yes, you can choke out another man because you're a big strong man, but the little girl can't do that, so you have to think differently, all that stuff. And
I like
so
this
that's
format.
why,
It blocks out Flip. Goodbye, Flip.
Yeah, that's
Republic
really
credit.
weird under there.
Republic
No,
credits.
no,
We
no,
don't take Republic credits. Get that off of here.
I think we can
Yeah. Forrest seems to think that you're Watto.
He's trans. What is Watto's
He looks-
species?
He is idiot.
He looks more. He looks
What I
more
like,
like a
what I
guy
like
that.
about The Last of Us. Go ahead.
What racist stereotype are you, Dragon?
Look, he is this. Once upon a time, Kevin and I made this guy talk like John Glenn or something like that. in one of-
Oh, I remember that episode. That was great.
Yeah. So what I'm wondering about Last of Us is how long until they break? Because so far they are basically lockstep with the plot of the video game. Like,
So I
beat for
think
beat.
by the
They've
end of it
added
they'll
a
break
couple
it
of the
because the
backstory.
ending's problematic is what I would say.
Well, it takes place in Salt Lake City and features a Mormon temple, so we can't.
You
have
think
that.
they'll go
Well,
there?
but-
They won't go there.
I think they'll go there.
Oh, they will. They
but
definitely will.
They will.
I'm
They
I'm
filmed
sure
it?
they will.
Do you remember?
Hold on,
Jared,
Jared,
it's
Jared,
been a while
tell
since
us
I
how-
played the game. Is there anything in the game about the backstory about them bombing the cities? I don't remember that. Like, there's there's like they lock them
No.
down in the quarantines, but like, because that's one thing. In the second episode, it starts with the scene with the lady being like, "Just bomb everyone." It's like, no, that's
It's the only way to be sure.
yeah, because that worked. Yeah, remember when we tried to bomb all the Viet Cong? Yeah, just bomb them all. That's how you get rid of something you don't want. Just bomb them all. That's worked
No,
every
so-
time.
I think the ending is going to be different than it was in the video game because I think the way that the video game ends is problematic to
Yeah.
the message, right? That's the only thing that I
That's a
think.
good point.
I don't. Maybe I'll play through the game again and
What
and
is the
see
message?
when I think
The message.
The
No,
ending, because it's
the
like
message.
the big trade-off of individualism versus sacrificing for the collective.
Yeah,
And
see,
like
he
the
gets
big
it.
moral question at the heart of it all is like, is that the choice we make? And it even is reflected in this bombing thing. Is like, oh, we're going to bomb the cities. Like what's the difference between the
Yeah.
bombing the cities and the closing all the businesses down so that everybody loses their livelihood? Like
Yeah.
there's some parallels
Evil
there.
Apostle gets it. It's
Because I
an
understand,
individualism thing because Joel ends up like his moral quandary at the end is this is my daughter now. Basically, Ellie is my daughter.
Yeah.
Will I let my daughter die to potentially save humanity?
Yeah.
And I really thought he was gonna let her do it. And it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite game endings of all time.
Yeah.
And
Well-
and I think they'll do it differently, or they'll make him out to be the bad guy for having done it that way. I don't know.
For me,
But
the
actually,
central
no.
thing-
You know what? I think they're gonna do The Last of Us Part 2, though. I know they said they wouldn't go beyond the game, so maybe they will in the first.
Well, so that's what I was
game,
going to say.
the way
The
that it
second one,
ended.
they do break the heart and soul of the story. I mean, I saw all the leaks that were eventually confirmed, which is it's creepy. How I guess AAA gaming has no security because every leak about Last of Us 2 was right. But like for me, the central theme of the first Last of Us is loss. That's what that story is about. Loss and how you cope with it, which is a big part of what made that ending so good, is because everything is about sacrificing when to let go, when not to let go, and it was brilliant. And so but obviously by killing Joel in the second one, they just fucking shit all over that,
Wow.
'cause
You
that's
just
like,
spoiled it for me. I did not know. Wait, now all my emotional investment is for diddly poop.
no, that's like someday if Last of Us 2 is on sale for $3.99, maybe I'll get it because I'm like
I
they
know.
say the gameplay is great. They say the game's great, but just that they
I've
shit
heard.
all over the story.
Showing a temple on the outside, but they
Well-
have to get permission or something. No, you don't have to get permission
No,
to show
it's
the
a
temple.
landmark.
Yeah.
They just showed it on the outside. They didn't there's nothing on the inside. It's a landmark in the game.
They didn't go and do the proxy work for the dead before they went to drop her off at the medical place.
Only she could do the proxy work for the dead.
But yeah, so like I
Is
kind
it
of
the
wonder,
real-
like, because maybe for HBO, like, here's the thing, maybe from a business perspective, for your bass players of the world, like I'm talking about specifically about your bass player, Chris, who like saw this show and was like, hey, I saw this show, and like apparently had no idea.
He'd never heard of it before.
He didn't know
It's a
it was an
scary
intellectual
show.
property.
What's the
So
name
that's
of the
things
show?
like, if I want like to be charitable and kind and to wish the best for everybody. Like, okay, let's hope that if, let's say HBO just makes a televised version of the first video game and they're true to it and it's well acted, well produced, and they make it and then they're done and they make a lot of money, good. Fine. I got no beef with that. You just know at some point they're gonna fucking do the thing that's gonna shit on everything, and well, that'll be that.
So the thing that I got about that first game was that it was like, normal games, you play the game, you shoot the thing, maybe there's some girls in bikinis, like it's good stuff. But in this game, it was like, all the guys that grow up playing video games now have families and they have things that they care about, and they want to feel validated in their role that they have taken on to like safeguard their family and stuff. And here's a video game where there's like a guy who, the virtues of the video game are that he's keeping this girl safe. And so they're like living out their best values on the game in being paternal and being protective and all the things that society tells them is toxic masculinity, but they get to do it and it's a good thing. And then like it makes a butt ton of money. And so then the people at God of War are like, hey, we got a guy who's like, his whole thing has been like sexy times and kill him times. Maybe we make him also be a dad too. And so they're like, hey, well, let's do this dad thing. And they make a butt ton of money. And so people are going to figure out, hey, if we like tap into those values, people will make a butt ton of money. So I'm going to leave you with that little gem. And then I listen off stream because you guys are boring and I don't want to steal your limelights. So I will talk to you later. Evil apostate.
All right.
Thanks for
that. Evil apostate.
People are going to hate me now. I'm problematic because I elevated your platform and you're a bunch of misogynistic, phobic people.
Are you going to sue Bethesda for stealing your likeness in the form of Alduin the dragon?
At least you added some diversity. Is he Albie the racist dragon? Have you seen Albie the racist?
The evil apostate dragon embodies whiteness.
Make sure you update your diversity profile on the Facebook page.
Oh, yeah. We'll be sure to do that.
Hasta la pasta.
I love that the diversity thing on Facebook. We're the good ones. We're good.
I know.
You can trust us.
I did that in my bio. I update my Facebook bio like every 5 months. I'll get sick of it, and so my most recent one was, I've read D'Angelo and Kendi. I swear to God, I'm one of the good whites. Because that's what all of that is. It's all just trying to prove I swear I'm one of the good ones. I know that I have these oppressor markers, but I'm one of the good ones. Not a white savior, not too good, but good enough.
God, can you imagine?
That trope, that thing world. that evil apostate deepity dragon was just talking about was I used to always kind of point at, before the woke times even, things like Die Hard, or what's the Liam Neeson movie, the Taken and stuff like that. That all those movies were divorced dad fantasies. So in every single one of them, there's like a dad, he's lost a woman, and nobody respects him anymore. They don't get how hardcore he is, and then he's gonna come back and save the day and win the woman back from his hardcore murder spree. And
it's a protect your child fantasy, and
it's a protect your child, but it's also like get the woman back. But there's also something to it too. Is like that's when the turn happened from all of your superheroes looking like Arnold and Sylvester Stallone and all that stuff to all of a sudden looking like 5 o'clock shadow, receding hairline, bit of a belly daddy, type stuff. And like it just played into the tropes of wanting to save the day and show everybody that you really were the hero or something like that. But there's a lot of stuff going back because you were just recently rewatching some Simpsons, right, Jared? And I think Flip and I were talking way back since forever of noticing the tropes on television that dads must be the butts of all jokes. And they must be the butts of all jokes in TV commercials, and they must be the butts of all jokes. And you could say, well, that's because they're only strong ones who can take the jokes. But there was just like a long stream of that. And so I started noticing tropes like that. But one of the big tropes that like I was just talking about with the Last of Us, and maybe they're the first ones to do it because it's 10 years ago, But since then, and even maybe in some good shows people can point at, but that Wolverine show, it was the same trope. Like the girl's the key and the hero to everything, and he's got to save and lift her up and sacrifice himself to, or even the new Mad Max movie that was, and it subverts it away from the guy being the hero into he's got to save the girl and lift her up and move her into the future because she's the key in the future to everything. And it's really the same trope of Wonder Woman. It's the same trope of, you could bring up that trope 75 different times. And now it's just getting...
I feel like with classic Simpsons, like, yes, Homer was frequently callous and insensitive and selfish and stupid. But like he had a redemption, like he wasn't just those things. And then if I pop into shows from, in the 15th season, or whatever onward, no, he's just those things. Like I don't see the redemption,
He's just a goof and a dope,
Yeah,
but they all got
in the early episodes,
dumber. They all got dumber. And if you watch anything from the latest season, I only watched one episode. The very first episode was like this January 6th thing
of Simpsons.
So dumb. Yeah. They
really?
Yeah, it totally gets into bad, dude. Homer gets caught up with the crowd, and then they have to go and save the day as the crowd, and it just kind of constantly shows the kids just sitting there looking at him going, oh, I can't believe my dad's falling into this stuff. And it's got all these like hit you over the head messages about not getting caught up in QAnon stuff and that sort of thing. And then Jared said he saw one where Mr. Duff Beer, whatever guy.
Yeah.
It's Duff. They get Duffman to. It's the weirdest thing ever because it shows. It's the one kind of funny part was it shows Duff ads from over the years, and
that could be funny.
Like it shows one from the 50s where he's like, "Give me a beer, bitch," whatever, and it shows one from like the 60s. Where it's a bunch of hippies, and it's all Duffman evolving with the times.
Yeah.
But then, for whatever reason, like the entire moral of the story is that Duffman can't evolve with the times. So they just totally shit on what was their initial narrative, and then they're like, Duffman doesn't understand what it's like to have a kid, and you realize that he has this daughter that he's been estranged from, and of course, she's like, got the pink blue hair with a nose ring and shit like that. And it's Homer trying to teach him how to be a good dad, but also Homer not knowing how to be a good dad. It's just, I don't know. I watched like 4 or 5 of those episodes, and it's difficult for me to even remember them. They were just bad. And Simpsons didn't get bad because it got woke. It just got unfunny. It died. Its soul died.
Yeah, no, Simpsons was bad 10 years before woke was a thing. 15 years before woke was a thing. Simpsons got bad.
So there's this whole thing like where Velma, and you can see like the criticism online for that Velma show that even people on the left are like, come on, don't be this dumb and obvious. This is just too. This is the exact version of the worst stereotype that whatever Fox News person says we are.
Well, it's because Mindy Kaling isn't woke.
Yeah.
None of these people are genuinely woke. They just they just think that that's gonna. Mindy Kaling's not woke, and
she's something I never understood her popularity because like. Was she a writer on?
She was a writer on it.
She was a writer and an actor, and
she wrote that. I think she wrote that one character. So like she played the dumb girl character very well. Was that her character? Because like that was great, but like because it seems
supposedly she wrote whole episodes.
Was done.
No, she wrote whole episodes, and her episodes were pretty good. That's the thing is there's a lot of people out there trying to pretend that Mindy Kaling is talentless, and that's not true.
Well, see, I'm just saying.
She wrote some good episodes of The Office.
I haven't seen
that Office stuff. Had some funny stuff with her for sure.
Yeah, she had some. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I think she wrote the episode that everybody always uses in their YouTube videos. The cutaway of Michael Scott just going, "No, God, no!" Like when he finds out that Toby is back. But part of that is, I think almost anyone could write a good episode of The Office because the formula is just so perfect. Like the characters are made in a way. So I think most people could write a good Office episode. I just don't think Mindy Kaling was ready to, because she talks in Velma about like, oh, all these people are making about her identity, but I don't think her identity is a big part of who she is. But then Velma mentions her own identity about 1 trillion times in the first episode, and she constantly is talking about white people. Daphne, the first thing she says is that she's an Asian American woman with 2 lesbian moms. Like they're always mentioning identity. So I don't know what she's thinking with this.
Yeah, I don't
It
know.
feels like somebody who's just kind of out of touch.
Maybe she's a convert. And
Because why do you even? Why would you appeal to these people? I'm constantly perplexed as to why. You're trying to appeal to the woke because you can't win with them. No matter what you do, it will never be woke enough.
And that goes into what I was just listening to with ThE, because they were reviewing Mormons who were holding like a state conference thing of reviewing how to be better with gay people, and they had gay people there at it, and you saw John ThE and those guys sitting to review it, and of course they're praising it, but then also saying it's not enough, and it's not enough.
It's never enough.
If it's
enough, I'm out of a job.
Yeah, until you fully become the full neoliberal modern day current religion, you're never enough. But the
oh my God,
the thing I was pointing out,
Mindy Kaling's personal life, and it's like always these people. Her dad was an architect. Her mom was an OBGYN.
Gynecologist. Yeah,
raised in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Well, it's the same with Aziz Ansari. Aziz Ansari was raised rich, and a lot of people talk about how
people keep bringing up that she's self-inserting. She's not self-inserting. She just the only person she really knows how to write well is her character in The Office, who's a bitch. Girl. But no, Velma's like a poor Indian middle class, like lower middle class, I think. And I'm like, no, she's not self-inserting, because if she were, she'd be privileged as fuck. Because Mindy Kaling, the person, makes any of my privilege look like nothing.
No, and also like I didn't even realize, like I should have realized, because like Kaling doesn't sound like an Indian name. She changed her name. It's a stage name.
What's her name?
I just Chickalingam.
You can probably pronounce it.
I think Chickalingam is what I saw. Mindy Kaling, I just saw it.
Well, that's one of the things that people have always brought up against the woke, who bring up India and all that stuff. That India had a caste system that was way harsher and worse than a lot of the systems that we ever had. But of course, they're a minority. That's the next episode we've maybe been talking about getting into with Deepity Dragon, but it's coming up on. I don't know if we're going to get back into it or not, but the next chapter inside of the Critical or Cynical Theories book is all about postcolonialism, which really started with Orientalism, which started with Edward Said, and that was all more about India than it was ever about Native Americans or anything.
There's a striking number of post-colonial theorists who were from India.
It's almost all of it.
That's the thing. That quote, Karis. What was? Do you still have that? Do you have that?
You want me to read it again? It'll be the fifth time. We're just getting smarter and smarter.
We invented empathy.
Let's see here. It is. I hope that our species, with the invention of technology, is waking up to the missing factor of empathy for other tribes.
We just didn't have it before. It wasn't our own empathy until we invented technology.
That is like such like the Deepak Chopra level of.
It really is like I'm trying to like
how science solves all the problems.
I'm trying to tease out some kind of meaning.
But that is the low level Sam Harris point. You know, I mean, Sam Harris is better at it, even though I like my last few things have been kind of ripping on Sam Harris, but. That's how it translates down to the average dummy. You know, like not every preacher, theologian, not every theologian is a practitioner, all that stuff, whatever. She is what the Bill Nye the Science Guy, I fucking love science crowd is, who follows all the Neil deGrasse Tyson stuff and turns this into what I call the new modern neoliberal religion, where they cock their heads back and say science, and I saw something on Ex-Mormon once. I showed it to you guys. Did you see that thing from Ex-Mormon? I don't think I can show it because it was just like a random person doing it. But it showed this like jaguar eating a monkey, and the monkey was carrying a baby.
Yeah.
And that stuff is, it's one of the harsh things. I watched this channel on Instagram called Nature is Metal, and it just has all these things where these.
Is that where you got the crab in the soup eating the corn off the cob?
Yeah, there was a crab getting baked alive, and it was still eating the other food that was in the
Yeah,
soup.
just a boiling pot of soup. You can see the noodles in there.
But there's a lot of video of different lions capturing monkeys who are carrying their babies, because obviously monkeys are probably more vulnerable in the moment that they're carrying babies. There's a lot of video of that. But
all
the person
it boils down to is just constant, if God real, why bad thing happened.
Yeah, but the person in Ex-Mormon writes on the post, they say, only science can save us from this cruel world and move on. It's like they showed this picture of this jaguar thing and then appealed to science.
Do you think science is going to convince jaguars to
science is going to
only kill monkeys that are toxically masculine or something like that?
And I look at it and like that's the low level stuff that just comes out of what I've been pointing at, is the as Yarvin calls it, the M.4.2 mind virus, which is the genealogies. We're doing the same thing. I mean, I know Deepity Dragon doesn't love comparing it to religion, although maybe he's changed his mind on that sort of stuff. But I just can't. It just is to me. And John DeLynn is like one of the worst versions of it. And so, should we talk about the Larson stuff, or should we keep talking about entertainment things?
Let's move on to Larson.
Larson, because we'll bring back.
What else is there to talk about entertainment?
Well, we're going to bring up all sorts of different stuff that over the time is like one of the concepts is like Trojan Horses. And one of the things that's like a Trojan horse is like you'll get a show like The Boys, and it starts out, it seems like it's making fun.
I was going to bring up,
yeah, it starts out like it's going to start making fun of these woke people and how obviously fake they are, and how obviously they're just playing into tropes to try to get attention, and it really is just corporatism doing a bunch of other bull crap. And then you move on through seasons, and pretty soon you're watching the same old.
Well, even within the season, so that comes from season 2 of The Boys. It came like right after Endgame, and Endgame had that mega cringy, like all of the Avenger girls working together thing. Right. And that scene. And then in The Boys, it was all corporatized, and they had that slogan, the girls get it done. And in the movie, they were trying to team up all the girls, and it was really, really fucking stupid. And then and they're making fun of it. They're saying, oh yeah, girls get it done. It's so stupid. It's so corporatized or whatever. And then like
by the end, they reify it. It all.
Yeah, the big bad guy is getting her trash kicked by the 3 main female characters, getting the shit beat out of her. And then one of the male characters actually like turns around and basically looks at the camera and goes, I guess girls do get it done. What?
Yeah.
I thought we were making fun of this.
The whole entire show is like showing how like these corporate places are using memes and stuff like that to swell up the people against them. But then after a while, they get into this concept of showing that it's these memes and these people. It's not really the corporate that are so bad. It's these underlying white supremacists who are actually Nazis who are doing all these meme things, and you're just like, oh, okay. Like, the whole thing started out almost like it was going to just be like a hard rip on that. Well, I call it neoliberal because it's the same thing you're saying about Mindy Kaling. Like when I point to that neoliberal stuff, the ultimate image of it is that image of like the American bombers, and they got the gay flag on it. You know what I mean? And it really is that thing that they flipped around on the people so well that they got the entirety of the left that used to be skeptical of the pharmacy industry. They used to be skeptical of the CIA. They used to be skeptical of the FBI, but they waved some flags.
They used to be skeptical of our Americans involving themselves in foreign wars.
Oh yeah.
They used to be skeptical of corporations. They got them just flip on all of it by waving around some rainbow flags. You know,
it's amazing.
Yeah, they
watching this stuff, like, cause the comment section on the NPR article about America sending heavy weapons to Ukraine, and just all of the cheerleading for war from these classic old liberals, and it's just
how dare you question pharmaceutical industry from the people who were hippies?
Yeah,
and you're like, what?
Like all these, like the same. How many of these people were the exact same people who gave me shit 15 years ago if I shopped at Walmart?
Yeah, exactly. But
now
that's
they
just
give you
another.
shit if you don't shoplift from
If
Walmart.
I don't, yeah.
That's just another general idea, but I think we should get to Larson stuff because it seems like some people are.
Troy said Troy said this. He said, "I can't get a read on
Let's
Larson.
go down from
Does he really believe in his moral outrages and catastrophizing, or is it performative? Honestly, I think he believes it. I think he seems so like the amount of him that I've seen. He seems very like unstable, and I don't know.
So maybe I was asking about it. Do you think he's really aware of the ideology? I mean, that's what this whole entire thing started from me actually directly being able to talk to him and getting blocked from it and trying to tell him, like, say, hey,
he's not aware of his ideology. No,
and then doesn't want to hear it. Doesn't even want to get into it. It'll cut you off before you get very far into it. Let's say here. I think Larson just hasn't let go of the concept he learned in the church that there is an ultimate truth and he has found it. Yes, that's 100% true. And part of what my last thing, because I was kind of ripping on, I mean, it shouldn't be ripping on general atheists at all. It's kind of, I kind of push on the new atheists, but it's more atheism plus that I'm ripping on, because I definitely do not and identify with atheism if people are just doing it like you're not tacking on the odds, or when you go to tack on the odds, you're basing it in something that makes sense.
What kind of guitar is that bass? What's that bass? Blue Meanie's bass. I'm asking Blue Meanie. He'll put it in the comment.
That's like a Rindlisbacher? No.
It looks kind of like mine, but mine's really shitty.
Yeah, no, that's got. You can tell even from here, it's like a nice piece of wood, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got like a good stand. Anyway,
whatever. What was I saying about?
John Larson plays bass guitar. He's left-handed. I saw it in his house. That he said, yeah, like it was there that day that we were there,
at his house. That he denied.
That he said that he denied that we ever were there.
And said,
I don't know, you guys.
Like anyway. I've gone over that, but so him in this episode, man, because we were going to talk about this other stuff, and he goes and drops this, and then he's, we can't not go after Larson. Come on. I'll just bring it up, man. I'm just going to bring it up. But he's like, I want to say he's like one of the worst versions of that autism that I talked about. I don't know. You guys probably didn't see him, but I dropped a couple episodes just talking about autism, OUGHTISM. Like these guys have autism, and the whole thing is that they think that because they deconstructed something that their oughts come out of that, and
it is. So the more the more fucking Socrates I read from, because we're trying to do that Vervaeke thing, and so I've been listening to this lecture that this guy gives on Plato's Republic. And the more Socrates I read, the more
gets frustrated.
The more annoyed I get. Yeah. Because I don't know, he's got some good stuff to say. Like the cave is a great allegory. I love that. I can't remember what I was trying to bring up with Socrates. What were we talking about?
I think you were talking about getting your oughts out of deconstructing. And you were probably talking about how Socrates' whole thing is just kind of needling at everything until it's incomprehensible.
So it's all the deconstructing thing. It's all
what you get is a deconstructed thing, and that's all you get.
So there's like, I don't. We've talked about this before. How I think that's what dumb people do to try to feel smart, is just deconstruct everything, because you don't have to be intelligent to deconstruct. You just have to learn the very simple formula of, well, why blah. If anybody says blah, you say, well, why blah, or explain blah more to me. And so deconstructing, the biggest idiot on the planet could do that. Like, as long as you have a double-digit IQ, you can deconstruct.
Yeah, if you figure out, it's the same with the Socratic method, and that's
But
kind of one of the things.
but they think that it's this big thing, like where they say, like, oh, the truth, the church
There's
thinks
a
they're
level
moral,
of
but
it.
what really is morality? But what really is truth claim? I don't know. It's
There's a level of it that's valuable. Like, it is valuable
Yeah.
to sit and question yourself. Like, can I
No,
justify
it's-
this? Can I justify that? But then at some level, do you remember that Louis C.K. joke when his daughters sit there asking him, but why? But why? But
Yeah.
why? But why? And at some point, you just go, just because. Shut up. You know. And,
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
it's basically that. But you have, so they brought on like Anthony Magnabosco one time onto, and he runs that whole street epistemology thing. And that street epistemology thing comes from Peter Boghossian's book. And that whole methodology that they do is just kind of sitting and going to a street and sitting there and just questioning people down and trying to put the Socratic method to them. That's what street epistemology is. Just go make people stop, and I think it's a little okay because they're a little bit less agendaed. Like, they kind of just like have somebody bring up what their belief is, and then they just Socratic method it down. Like, well, why do you believe that? Well, why do you believe that? Why do you believe that? And they don't try to come to like an outcome like, you should believe this then. But it's still a little bit of the same. But I bring up all the time that they had him on the Lynn's podcast, and they asked him why the whole atheism movement fell apart. He knew perfectly well. He was around Matt Dillahunty, and I brought up Matt Dillahunty being one of the worst autists. Just yesterday, autist OUGH. Just yesterday, Gad Sad had a run-in with Matt Dillahunty. He said something about men not being women or something like that, or why would they say this about these men menstruating? And Matt Dillahunty came in and said, because they're just speaking the truth. And that's just another version of it, of people being, you're doing your pragmatics too, just like, the Lynn Larson say, hey, be very, very careful with what people think is true or not when it comes around their identity. But don't be very, very careful with people who have religious beliefs, because the other one could cause harm. But the religious one causes harm. It gets all the way back to those Jonathan Haidt things of what's your moral foundation. There's multiple different moral foundations. And DeLynn and Larson think their moral foundation is the only moral foundation. Their empathy, care, their care harm foundation, and how they interpret care harm. And it's all odds. It's not really based in anything except for their neoliberal values and ones that have kind of been passed down to them. Let me go through some of these comments, because I think they're all kind of along the lines of Larson turned into the straw grasser. He thinks he knows, and under the surface, I think he mostly knows it. Not just only that, because today in this episode, I don't know if I have the clips right up. I'm going to pull it up. But the thing is, sometimes these transcripts aren't available quite yet when it's this recent. But he gets the point that drives me nuts with these guys, and he starts reciting scripture at them, and the proper way that they're supposed to understand the scripture. And then he starts. I mean, it does just turn into, as Yarvin said in that video I posted, that M.41 virus is just chewing out M.40 virus, because its whole mission is just to attack the previous virus. Let's see. Larson turned into, was that the same one? Larson turned to the straw grasper under the surface. I think it's the wandering. If you're priesthood, blessing is from you or the spirit, but overall he believes it. Yeah, I think he gives away, and this has kind of been my thing with all those people, and Peterson's been saying it too, and I'm not saying it's all atheists, because Peterson will say all atheists do this. I think some atheists do good at not crossing the lines, or if they do cross the lines, they're basing it in something that they're basing it in some sort of reason that they're saying, okay, I'm going to start building a construct here. It's my atheism doesn't make this. And oh shit, what was I saying? All of those guys, they all demonstrate and show up. They're on that atheism plus side. They all reveal this kind of I keep calling it like the neoliberal theology, but it is all really based in down at the bottom of it, different secular human ideas that do base back into like a Platonism, just the same as anything. And that was my whole thing, is like, atheists, weren't you supposed to be here to deconstruct that Platonism too, if there's a deist in it or not? Yes or no? Yes or no? If no, why does that God get a pass, you know? And why does that construct? And or if we're going to save it or use it, just admit what we're doing. Let's see. Try doing the meditations. Did you try any of those meditations from Rebecca? I don't really do meditations like that.
I tried the first one like briefly before I went to work. It's like, it's difficult for me to take myself seriously enough to try to do a meditation though.
Yeah. So those ones,
I struggle with meditating for the same reason I always struggled praying. Like,
yeah.
Like how am I supposed to structure nothing?
Not speaking out of tune there, but I know Christopher wasn't crazy about him because he thinks meditation doesn't need to be so formal like that, you know. But not to speak out of turn for you, Christopher, but this is the first thing that I noticed in this video here, that I want to place a bet.
We were talking a little bit about the Great Salt Lake. I was calling you a real, genuine modern day prophet. Do you want to update us on kind of Great Salt Lake news and how you've been?
I watched
has
this
even
part.
been tapped a little bit.
Well, that's to come. But the big, you know, as we do Lake Watch, the big news is before the legislative session began, a group of experts came together and released a report, and they set the clock a running. They said they've got about 5 years before the lake is gone.
$10,000, John Larson. I bet $10,000.
Damn.
Right here, everybody's hearing it right here. Everybody's hearing it right now. I bet $10,000.
What's the bet? That
The 5 years. Great Salt Lake has 5 years left.
Well, but you know that these predictions
hedge on
these
that.
predictions are actually great. These predictions are a win-win for them, because like you would think that when the predictions don't come true, when in 2015 the polar ice caps haven't completely melted and flooded most of the coastal west of the US like Al Gore said it would, all that means is that our interfering with climate politics saved us from that deadly thing. And so that's what's going to happen. Even if you actually got a hold of him, even if you actually got him to say, sure, I'll bet you $10,000, that comes around in 5 years and you say, all right, where's my 10 grand? He's going to be like, well, thank God for all of the, I'll pay it to, I'll give you the money over a beer, but thank God for all of the legislation that we did that kept the Salt Lake from drying up.
Okay, so Flip, did you get into the part, or anybody else, did you get into where he started talking about the normalcy bias, and he talked about different
only a little
situations?
bit. Like he said, because one thing is he talked about the Tenerife disaster, and I tried to look that up because I'm not, you know, that there's a little bit of an anecdotalness to that telling of that story. But anyway.
Yeah, so every single one of them are some sort of a concept of like people should have recognized that they should have ran away from something. And of course, one of them that he brings up is the global pandemic, that nobody was doing anything until February or something like that. And here's one of the things about the global pandemic is due to whatever internet stuff I watch, I was well aware that weird stuff was happening in China in early December. People were spreading it around. And I was also kind of like, well, what's this? What's it going to be? But I'll tell you right now, the first people looking at that were right wingers, 100%. And when it came around to February and they were impeaching Trump in the middle of it, because that was so important, it was Pelosi who was saying, go out and hug a Chinese person and all that sorts of stuff. And they had like a China Day, like there was like a Chinatown Day that they had because they wanted people to not freak out about that. And Italy literally did have like a hug or kiss a Chinese person day or something. And it was so dumb. And it was done by these goofy lefties. And then Trump brought it up like a little bit later. But any sort of concept and the way he kind of sneers and points that the right wing didn't see that fast enough because of normalcy bias is just such a rewriting of stupid history.
Yeah.
And secondly, in all of that situation, in hindsight, we probably should have done nothing is what we should have done. as far
Yeah,
as
no,
like what
that's,
they,
I don't know.
but-
When that whole thing started, I just said what I learned from listening to 15 years of Skeptic's Guide to the Universe at that point. Wash your hands. If you feel sick, stay home.
yeah, there's not anything you can do about airborne.
That's how you handle this stuff.
Yeah.
Wash your hands. If you feel sick, stay home.
Airborne viruses of the lung, there ain't nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It's gonna do what it does. There's actually some law. There's a law. I couldn't recite you the name of the law, but it's a law. It's almost like as hard and stone as any sort of law in physics that airborne viruses like that do what they do, and there's nothing you can do about it. In the middle of this, I sent you guys
There's also the whole thing
this.
is like there's a little bit of the reversal. I mean, I think you touched on it already, where it's like when Trump said like, "Oh, this is serious," people are like, "Oh, you maniac! Oh, you farts!" They did the fart sniffing thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you people. I mean, like, there's one thing that blows my mind is how Kamala Harris just totally gets away with Remember when she said she wouldn't take the vaccine as long as it came out under Trump?
Yeah.
Like, and just trying to, like, even trying to steel man her position. Like, there's nothing there. Like, that was just a nakedly bigoted, anti-scientific statement. They just totally let her walk on that.
So Razor Fist, I don't know if we explained it well enough or if people watched the episode.
I didn't watch
They talked about normalcy bias. The normalcy bias is there's all these things like people who should have realized that they should have gotten off of a ship or just moved because they're in a fiery place and they should just go, but they don't go because they just don't a fire alarm goes off and you don't really think this is real and you don't run off the ship. Razor Fist just this week just released this video about the seawall tragedy.
Oh, yeah.
It was a bunch of Korean kids who got like 300 of them got killed on this ferry.
Yeah,
and
I know this story.
One of the things that got pointed out by this thing is that what happened was the experts told them to stay where they were when they were wanting to run out of the ship. You know what I mean? The authorities and the people in charge.
It was fucked up. So like there was the crew put on like an automatic message that was just like, go to your cabins, wait for new orders. And then they abandoned ship and just left that thing on loop.
Jesus.
Literally. And so a whole bunch of kids just died in their cabins because when they should have just gotten off the fucking boat. But no, yeah, when you read into that, like, in Korea, it's a major scandal. And like all of the layers of incompetence and lack of oversight that led up to that tragedy, it's almost like Soviet level bullshit. But that was one of the big things at the end was like the way the crew handled it. Because just that they abandoned ship and they literally left that thing on loop, just telling people to stay in your cabins and wait for instructions.
Yeah. So the normalcy bias stuff that he's saying, it just doesn't pan out to work as a metaphor like he wants it to work. That's the reason why Mormons stay in the church and they realize there's a fire going on around them.
Well, I think when he was talking about that, one of the thing that sprang to my mind is because, 10 years ago or so, I worked, did police dispatch at a university. And one of the things we did was we dispatched on all of the burglar alarms for the entire campus. So all of the door alarms, all of the window alarms. And then there was also the emergency phones that people could pick up in the parking lot. We had basically everything that could alarm was dispatched through us. And I asked my boss, who had been there for 15 years, like, how many burglar alarms have been an actual burglar in your career? She said, none, not one ever. And bear in mind that, especially at night, I work the night shifts. We do about, 5 to 10 a night. Like, most of what we did was responding to false alarms. And I was really struck by that. We're like, in 15 years, not one alarm was an actual alarm. They're all either faulty electronics or somebody forgot their keys. Every time.
Well, then there's major dangers of false alarms and false emergencies. And we know in the current modern day of the state that we've got trying to run and take executive power, that their quick shortcut way to executive power is declaring emergencies. And then you have the story of Chicken Little, like get everybody panic so they run out of a thing and run right into the mouth of a wolf. It's just not so simple to point like that. But then we saw some people on Twitter kind of point out that like you're trying to pull out normalcy bias for Mormons. I mean, I know you're using it as like an esoteric thing for like they see that their church is on fire, so that's why they're not leaving. But they pointed out that one of the things people who have normalcy bias don't do is prep for the future. You know,
I know.
it's like you got the wrong group there. It's like your thing just doesn't work. But I mean, one of the weird things about it is I think it was a little bit like watching. I was telling you earlier. It's like watching Marxists from the Frankfurter School. Those type of people who are trying to justify why Marxism doesn't work. And so like they're having this admittance that there's something they're not quite grasping or getting, but then they come up with these theories and things to try to explain it and try to get on top of it and try to do it. And the theories just are missing, but they just keep going with it and going with it and going with it. And you get a bunch of go ahead.
It's like any politically ideological person trying to explain the success or failure of whatever president's economic policy. We're like, it's either, oh no, that was all because of them, or oh no, it was because of the last guy, or well, no, what chance did he have with the last guy, or like, no matter what, they'll just explain it away, and like there's no possibility that anybody's policy had any effect on anything that as far as your side is concerned.
See, Forrest, like I don't disagree with this, like something I've been unjustified or false. I think either unjustified or false are perfectly tear downable. What I'm saying is like I think the people who are declared or kind of classified as new atheists, the ones who are very caught up in their new mind virus.
I guess what would be what's the main difference between unjustified and false?
Unjustified. I can see what he's saying. Like false is like everybody should be able to see it with a little bit of thing, whereas some other ones are like, hey, could you kind of ground that a bit better for me? I mean, it's vague.
I have issue with this thing of atheists tear down false assumptions. No, they don't. Most Buddhists
that's kind of what we're getting at, is that
like most Buddhists are atheists. Have you ever talked to some of the wacky shit Buddhists believe? I have a Buddhist friend for 10 years. He went to Nepal. And he believes that there is a rock that has the hand of the Buddha burned into it. Yeah. Like he believes this supernatural thing. He believes in no gods.
Yeah. So this is one of the things. So for the one of the points that because Flip and I listened to Skeptic's Guide to the Universe all the way back in the day. And we watched as they kind of gone down their whole entire path of reaffirming every little bit and piece of feminism, and then over time reaffirming every little part of LGBTQ ideology, which is queer theory ideology, which is some stuff that we've been getting into Streeter's channel. And Dillahunty, as I was just bringing up, go look up Dillahunty and the run-in he just had with Gad Sad. And Dillahunty is king of atheists, He's king of the guy who helps tear down those other people. But there's a false assumption about some of his queer theology, and he just won't have it. He's not going to have it. And one of his justifications for it is cause harm, cause harm, cause harm. Same with the Lynn, same with Larson. They're not going to touch it. They're not going to go there. But they're going to tiptoe tap dance around that for that, but they won't tiptoe tap dance around it for Mormons. And I can go and say, like, that's kind of why I say in my life, like, I am the queer theory stuff, especially from Judith Butler, is some horse shit. But if I come across a trans person in my life who is sincere and honest in their stuff, I'm not going to walk up to their face and say, listen, asshole, you're you're actually this or that. Like I'm going to be in line of, I'm not going to cause harm to this guy's self-perception and all that sorts of stuff in this world. And as long as he's not forcing and pushing it into areas that make other people.
Well, it's just that you get into the weeds with what constitutes causing harm. And at this point, we're to the point where causing harm is having an incorrect opinion. That's something very unique to the transgender movement, is that any pushback could be construed as causing harm because they have such a high suicide rate.
Yeah.
It's basically a group of people that holds themselves hostage based on your own virtue. Like you are virtuous enough to not want people to die, right? It's against your virtue to push people to death. And so you are pushing people to death. It's a thing they share.
It's a thing they share with conservative Muslims, where like if a cartoonist in Denmark makes a rude drawing, Muslims in Cairo will murder Coptic nuns. And they will say it's because you heard us.
So one of the things Flip's brought up a ton of different times on here, Flip's an atheist, you know, Flip will talk about and notice that inside of that queer theology, there's all sorts of theological claims in it. And we brought up those little moments a ton of different times. Like, I am not my soul, my body. There's this dualism. There's this thing going on in there. And then Dillahunty is running with Gad Sad of telling Gad Sad that it is true that men menstruate. And things like that. And then, of course, we can get into all of the ways that they break that down. But one of the things James Lindsay's pointed out and all that is that stuff does come from real Hermetic religious precepts. They're real. Like, it's not like the down at the bottom of the stuff that those guys are using comes from stuff that is truthfully religious. And so what I'm saying is, like, deconstructing, well, just to answer this, I'm not deconstructing atheism. I'm saying atheism.
There's nothing to deconstruct in atheism. There's nothing to deconstruct.
What I'm saying is atheism isn't doing its job all the way. They're picking and choosing, you know. And
like, atheism has no job. Atheism has no feelings. Atheism has no politics. Atheism has no haircut. It has no sweaters. It has no holidays. It has no traditions.
If their one thing is to deny or lack of belief in gods or something,
atheism has one opinion on one question. Is there
atheism
a God?
Atheism has this issue with it changes what it is based on argument sometimes, right? You'll see this with a lot of these guys where if I'm making an assumption, then, like, based on atheism, the atheist will then say, well, no, atheism makes no assumptions. But if I'm making an assumption, I got lost in my own
atheists.
thought.
Many people who declare themselves atheists think it is the foundation to then go make assumptions. They fail.
Well, it's kind of like when you hear somebody say something, that's not a real atheist.
I spent a long time.
Somebody cannot be a real atheist based on their belief, then that means that atheism is this thing that makes no assumptions, right?
Well, no, it's just that the issue is people are assigning opinions, ideas, morality to atheism. Like, atheism has one opinion on one question. That's it. It's like, you know, I keep using the analogy of it's the no golf club. Like, what does it mean to be in the no golf club? Oh, well, what do you do? Well, we don't play golf. Well, you get together and what? Well, we don't play golf. Like, you don't play golf? No, some of us will play golf on vacation with our relatives, you know, but when we get together, we don't play golf. Like, no, it's not a thing. You can't, there's nothing to unite. There's nothing to rally around. It's just an opinion on this one thing. You can, like, Scientology is atheistic. About false assumptions.
I think that's what I would love for atheism to be. But when I see, like, atheists, I don't know, they talk oftentimes, at least this new atheistic movement, they talk a lot about, like, well, no, atheists would say blah, like, have this moral assumption or whatever, and they act exactly kind of in like as if they do have a structured ideology. I understand that that's not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, well,
it's people extrapolating and running with it. I mean, that's what people do.
It's kind of like the same idea that, like, you know, because, you know, like, a lot of Christian types, a lot of religious types just assume, they say, like, well, if you believe in no God, then you just must be a rapacious, you know, just self-fulfillment, hedonistic, you know, what else could you possibly be? And it's just like how communists view capitalism. You know, like, capitalists can't possibly see value in other people. No, they're just purely selfish. You know, it's like, no, it gets farcical almost instantaneously.
So one of the, like, Troy, when
I'm trying to understand this question. You don't think there's a difference between Joseph Smith did not see an angel in his bedroom? Okay, Joseph Smith did not see an angel in his bedroom. That's a negative claim about a claim that is on.
I do think it's different, but
I don't have a justified foundation at the bottom of my moral.
I also think that if you stop and take a step back and look at it, because I'm not somebody who has a problem saying I don't believe Joseph Smith saw an angel in his bedroom. Like, I'm not playing games with that, you know.
Yeah.
But If you take a step back from that stuff, you meet many people who say, I think Joseph Smith saw an angel in his bedroom. And you meet many people who say, I think humans are just cells and are just meat bodies and whatever. And maybe it's justified, maybe it's not justified. But which one of those things creates a better society beyond it? Like somebody, and that's one for like Jared that I was going to ask you about. Like maybe that's a pragmatism you could get behind, is like, you have to say in some sort of pragmatism, if somebody proved to you that human beings were just cells and that's all they are, maybe a pragmatism you could get behind is like, nah, I think we're more than that. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're a bit more transcendent than that.
Well,
even if your other thing's true, it's probably better for us to think.
Like, so what if like you got
to me, if somebody proved that to me beyond any doubt at all, I'd probably just become a nihilist.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that's one of the areas, because I see you saying like, I have a hard time with the pragmatism of like maybe a Mormonism of saying Joseph Smith thought I saw plates, therefore we have great society. And
I don't understand. What I'm saying is, I don't understand the guys in the lobster group who can say like,
so I'm going to forcefully decide to believe.
But somehow I still believe in Mormonism. Like I honestly, Forrest, I haven't watched any of your videos, but I feel like I think the same way as you do, because
like, this is the pragmatism
shit like this. Sorry, go on.
That's one of the pragmatisms I think maybe you could get behind, is like, if somebody proved to you that humans are just globular cells and it does not matter. And one of the huge moments in my life, not to I guess to get, I may or may not have one time done some mushrooms. And in the middle of that, it dawned on me that all of this is really going away. It's all dying. You know, it's not going to be here. Any sort of memory of Shakespeare or Beethoven or whatever is going, and you really, really have to, if you're a nihilist, have to understand it. And it doesn't matter what happens in between or not, maybe to you, maybe to somebody else. But if you really think that, we really are just ants on a planet or something like that. And so if you really land on that idea, and I think some people up at the top, like Noel Harari, have kind of landed on that idea. Yeah. If you really think that, I think it would be better if somebody pragmatically decided to believe that people are more transcendent than that, or if they really did start just saying, we're just bugs. Like, I think the pragmatics of one, I mean, that's a pragmatic I think people could maybe get behind, unless they're just fine with going along with it.
I guess when I think of that, it's hard for me to it's still hard for me to back the pragmatic belief, right? Because to me, that's like, okay, I've learned that this is all meaningless. We're all just sacks of meat, right? And so either this person can suffer with that knowledge for the next 70 years or so before they die and forget everything.
Or suffer, but they might act. Like they might act,
or that person
get in positions of power to act.
Sure, but like then a bunch of people will suffer for the next 70 to
and it doesn't matter because it will all be forgotten.
And it doesn't matter.
It'll all just be forgotten when the sun burns out.
Yeah. It's difficult for me with that. Like I can't do pragmatic belief, because I couldn't, if I were convinced that there is no God, no meaning, no anything, I would then just be like, well then, like, suffer or not, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, I'm a human being. I'm an animal that doesn't want to suffer, so I'm going to do everything that I can to not suffer. But it really makes no difference in the long scheme of things if this guy suffers forever, or if he has a good life. His life might be better if he thinks that there's a God. I don't know. His life might be better if he follows a religion pragmatically, but like, who fucking cares? Because he'll die in 30 years, and then it doesn't mean anything.
I think not only would it be better they don't have to believe there's a God at the end of it, but just maybe that they believe that being is a being that's more important, like more transcendent than just a ball of flesh, you know?
I mean, that Reformed Judaism has been doing this for hundreds of years, right?
Yeah. And, but I was just trying to find an example of a pragmatic that maybe Jared would get behind, but, or say that I can see how somebody doing the pragmatic of thinking that those beings are transcendent might be somebody who's better than somebody who's sitting there just, especially in a leadership position, just saying, hey, these are useless eaters. like Noah Harari calls them. But that's just going to thing. But that's kind of the point with this is maybe one of the things down at the bottom. I mean, that's just ultimately the point that I'm getting at is that maybe a bunch of people who think that Joseph Smith saw an angel in a group kind of create a better group than a group of people who have an unjustified foundation of antinatalism. And it's not very justified, but it's kind of justified, but it's not justified. But then it also kind of leans into some precepts of like what should and shouldn't live and what should and shouldn't exist and has all sorts of oughts built into it. And so that, I mean, that's just kind of the level that I'm talking about. It's a step back from that, but let's see. The problem
with the Criterion. The Criterion collection? Well, they're a bunch of slow, boring black and white movies. That's the problem with Criterion.
The Criterion collection, yeah.
Oh.
Let's see.
I love Criterion. That logo, back 20-something years ago when I emptied the Hollywood Video of all of their foreign section, I watched all the Kurosawa, and everything was Criterion collection.
So I think one of the interesting things, and I've been kind of pointing to James Lindsay, and I was saying to these guys, one of the things you might look at, because James Lindsay's been ripping into this theosophy stuff. You should hear him rip into the theosophy, and then go look up like Kwaku calls Mormonism theosophy. Midnight Mormons had a whole episode about that, and I think they said it's Kwaku's opinion. So Cardin and what's the name backed off it, but I would not go calling it theosophy if I was wanting to but
I'm excited to see where Kwaku goes in life because he's a weird fucker. So okay, so Maple Lake Mountain mentioned we all act on useful lies. Like a common rule for guns is to always act as if it's loaded. Is that true? No, it's actually a lie, but we would rather act as if it's true. And I'm gonna have to think about that because
I think
that
that's
is
a good
like
point.
That's a pragmatism that I definitely subscribe to. That's
Yeah.
something that I try. Because I remember like so I had my sister-in-law living here for a while. She was going to prom, and she was like, "Hey, can we do some prom pictures where, like, since my dad's not here right now, you hold your gun and I'm with my prom date?" I was like, "No, that's fucking cheesy. I'm not gonna do that." So she did it with her brother instead. Her brother wanted to use my gun. It's an AR, and he's like holding it. They're not used to guns, right? And so I was like, I don't have a magazine that isn't fully loaded, so you're just gonna have to not have a magazine in it. He's like, well, I won't like pull the trigger or anything. I don't fucking care. You don't get a magazine, dude. And he's like, I don't know. It's funny to see people who have never been around guns and shit. They're so flippant with them. They just kind of like wave them around and like, no, you point that at the fucking ground. I don't care that there's no magazine in it. I don't care that there's no bullets in the chamber. You point at the fucking ground. So I get what you're saying. And I'm going to have to think on what I would respond to that with.
Let's see. Aren't we down with deconstructing those things just like we deconstruct? Well, I mean, Flip and I did do that for years and years and years. We were there for all the Flip's on a bunch of John Larson's old episodes and what was it called? Mormon Expression and all that sorts of stuff. Yeah. And we've been in it and through it. And part of it is it seems like most, like one of the things I frequently say is if I get to choose if Mormons be Mormons or they go and become the Linnites, I choose Mormons for my sake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's a third party, and I brought this up. There's a third option that is the scariest one yet, and I fear it comes. And I'll throw you red meat to this, and that's that the Mormons just merge with this whole thing. And I think they are going to merge with this whole thing. And I think they will become the mechanized, my worst nightmare. They'll become part of it. And I hate to say that to any sort of Mormons who might listen and hear in with us, but I haven't really gone into hardly about how I don't have much or any trust in the bureaucratic leaders up at the top of it. I brought on your brother's podcast that I think that that up at the top of it, there's Robert Conquest 3 rules that any organization that's not explicitly right-wing moves left. Cthulhu always swims left. And the Cthulhu always, and then if you're questioning anything that's going on with any sort of organization, imagine that it's being run by a cabal of its own enemies. And I think
maybe I
what?
should just embrace this pragmatism, because like ideology seems to put you forward, like it gives you an advantage, and I don't know. I feel like I don't have this advantage because I don't embrace any ideology, but maybe pragmatism is where to go. Because pragmatically speaking, if you are, if John Larson gets a hold of the United States or anything like that, if any of these major climate change alarmists get a hold, like, what's the move? The move is to fucking glass India and China for their carbon output. Like, that's just absolutely wipe them off the map. And I would say
you're giving them too much credit that they'd actually do something that logical. You know?
So I think when
I mean, like, just because they don't even have the whole equation about, like, yeah, just like you talk about, where, you know, they complain about this stuff, you know, but like if people pointed out that they jet around on their private jets to go tell people to stop running gas stoves.
So I think
the priorities are all out of whack.
I think that Peterson. I think Peterson actually got blocked by Matt Dillahunty for this, because when he and Peterson talked on stage, and Peterson kind of poked at him and made him realize that his morality was, his moral foundations or his moral philosophy was just kind of going. And I can pull up a video. Somebody sent it to me today, but we pulled it before. But look up Dawkins going on Joe Rogan. It was even Doug Wilson pulled it up. I know that you've talked about Doug Wilson. And Dawkins on Rogan talking about, oh, how do we get our morals? I don't know, parties. We go to parties and talk about stuff. And that's you know, so he did have an assumption. There's an assumption, and I think Sam Harris doesn't get very far away from it, that that we just, because we got to this atheistic point, it then follows that this stuff. And I think Lynn and Larson are especially bad at that. I think Dillahunty, after he kind of got shocked into realizing he hadn't justified that stuff, has gotten better, but then he still doesn't, his rationality doesn't win. I know I saw Rationality Rules go and debate and talk with Vanderklay and Pajau. And I think in his first debate with them, he didn't know what he was up against or talking about. And then later he came back fully kind of understanding. I think you're getting up to it too. But my point is, and in that video that I showed all sorts of atheists who do. I was pointing out to atheists who do it right, and atheists or who do it, who think about justifying or look at what is, and then maybe when they go and make their moral foundations, they say, hey, let's build off of this stuff, or let's use this. Part of the idea of the whole entire thing, like I said from the start of this, I bring up that concept of the French calendar during the that stupid 10-day calendar they came up with. And that's just kind of my general metaphor for the whole entire thing, is that stupid, we're going to reinvent the whole entire wheel because we think we can just reinvent it from the ground up. What is part of the problem. And there's plenty of atheists who are nowadays figuring out, like, hey, we got to borrow from, which is a bit like, hey, let's keep this old calendar that uses gods and uses 7 days and came from those religious people. Pretty good calendar, and that's just kind of just the general idea with that whole thing. But beyond that too, is that religious people, I believe, should be in the conversation 100% if we're going to make it societal.
What is this? Sorry, I don't mean to. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
What does he mean? Like, what you guys take the actions that atheists do believe, and then say it's because of their atheism? I'm not sure what.
I'm saying that he's justified. And I think it's true that some of them have gotten better, especially after taking some criticism about it. But
no, there's the comment from Forrest, because isn't he talking to us?
That's what I'm talking about. Oh. He's talking to us. He's saying that we claim that they don't have like Troy, when he was debating with Jacob. Troy brought up all sorts of philosophical justifications in Hume and evolution and all that sorts of stuff. And I'm not pointing at Troy. Like, I think Troy did, advance into saying, hey, I'm going to justify it off of this stuff and that stuff. But what I'm saying is a lot of those other atheists, especially back at the start of the Atheism Plus movement, they all did not. They just said, hey, our atheism, it necessarily follows that secular humanism. And we pulled up that it basically says that on the atheism website right now. And
does not follow.
They smuggle it in, and they smuggle it into everything. And I think that's been our whole point with the Lynn and Larson, is they tried to act like they're neutral, and they try to act like all we do is search for truth, and we just found the truth that this isn't true. And then I think they do a terrible job of justifying that. And then it then follows that you just buy into every single one of our neoliberal precepts because we're just looking at truth. And like that quote we re-quoted from Kara several times, like, you know, we got rid of the demon haunted mind, and now science and the future technology, yay! And then it's just not as founded as like when Troy debated Jacob. Troy's basing his stuff off of, you know, and I think better justified stuff is fine too. But at the same time too, if you get enough into philosophy, you realize that better justified stuff still relies on constructs that Nietzsche called building up cobwebs and sandcastles himself. And down at the end of very, very sincere Platonism or whatever, it's called a mysticism, and behind the top value, they think there is a secondary, you know, Hinterwelt, an underworld, a second world to all this. It's the area outside of the cave in Plato's cave is a second world, and how that's necessarily different than a second realm or something that Mormons use, is beyond me. It's kind of like,
no, that's one of those. I mean, obviously, like when people say, like, they claim the atheist type thing and then talk about trans queer theory and being born in the wrong body, where it's like, okay, you're exactly where Mormons are. Mormons say they are a child of God, that they live in a spirit realm. Like, and if you're born in the wrong body, then you're invoking a soul. There's just no way around that. Like, that's something Joshua Slocum points out. Yeah, like, it's like, and you know, that's things like, you know, I just say like my atheistic perspective, although it has nothing to do with atheism, because you can believe this and believe in God, is that like, no, you are your body. You know, like, you are your body, you know, and that has nothing to do.
Using that same stuff, and that's why I keep pointing to Vervaeke, and we're going to review Vervaeke, because Vervaeke is, like I said from the start, Vervaeke is trying to do what Jefferson did for the Bible. He's trying to demystify he's trying to remove the mysticism from Plato. And so, like, if there's something that's the one, or something that's acting like this, that previously they called the Hinterwelt, the underworld, or something like that, that's some underneath thing acting, which is why I contest that Peterson ultimately is a believer, because he believes the underlying thing in the secondary realm is there, whatever that is. And if it's a being, or if it's something like that. But Vervaeke is saying, no, I think using cognitive behavioral therapy, or not cognitive science and all that sort of stuff, I can kind of explain the general concepts that they're trying to get at with that sort of thing. So he's kind of taken it out of that mystic realm, or trying to. And we're reviewing it to see if it's not only like useful or good, like Christopher from Before the Crow's Nest was talking about. He talks a lot about doing these meditation things, which Harris gets into that too. But part of that whole entire thing coming from Plato is that to understand or know the world better, he's got these 4 P's of like propositional knowledge. It also has to be participatory, and it also has to be performative. It's like you got to get your body into it's a monism. Like, you are stuck in this body, and that goes against that goes against the queer theorists, you know what I mean? But part of you understanding and knowing everything has your body mixed into it, and how you feel and how you sense that sort of stuff. And it might have been a bit mystical when Plato said it, but Vervaeke's trying to base that. Like, if he says your body, or if you hold your neck this way, if you hold your head this way, he's got 75 studies behind it that shows, yeah, if you do hold your head this way, it'll relax people more, or something like that, from like real actual cognitive science stuff. And that's what he's trying to do. But we're reviewing it not just to say, hey, is this helpful? Because one of the things I think he's trying to help people do is understand how pre-modern thinkers thought. And that's one of the points I was talking about. Pre-modern thinkers didn't think like modern thinkers, and Mormonism is squarely modern. Like, we were taught from Mormonism to think materialistically. We were taught from Mormonism to think that God is a body in this same realm almost. It's almost like, I don't know. Is God, was there ever a second realm? Is there? I mean, after the life or something like that, or was it all always here? Like, I don't know. What's our own?
I remember having a really hard time with that, like how to visualize that, because they kind of have it both ways. But like, I had it as like, no, it's a real physical place where we will walk around and interact, and you can bump into each other and stuff. You know.
Yeah,
Well, in
and I agree
Mormonism,
with
it
Troy
kind of
here.
has to be.
I agree with Troy here. There's like, and I've said it several times. Nothing I'm saying thinks that or claims that there's gods there.
Yeah.
Out there. And
Well, this is the thing I struggle with all the time is that because like I have this whole thing where it's like I can see religious faith. I can understand, I think, somebody who believes. And I believe that they sincerely believe. I just don't believe, you know, like, and it's a tough place because, like, you know, this thing where it's like, yeah, I think that religion is good for some people, you know, but should I do religion? I don't think so.
my definition
I
of a
don't know.
mysticism.
I don't know what to do
I
with
don't
that.
wanna.
Yeah, I don't wanna.
My definition of a mysticism has a
An
deist
unjustified
God behind it.
assumption at the base of your world.
There's deities or something like a deity behind it. Like I'm calling it a deism. It's a form of deism. So it's that's why I say, why don't atheists go after that too? And I think Plato, you could argue if Aristotle is or not, because Aristotle said we didn't like really have transcendent souls, but most of the people who get like their prime mover of the universe, the very first answer, which is a deism from Aristotle. And one of the things about Aristotle and Plato is that maybe if they were born in our current day and had more hard science, they wouldn't. Yeah, but they were pre-modern thinkers. You know,
So I think everybody relies on unjustified assumptions in order to operate in the world, right? But maybe the difference between maybe a good definition of mysticism is people who don't know, or at least don't acknowledge that they're operating. There's a hint of unjustified.
What is mysticism?
Because they'll just say it's God.
Yeah, I keep using Nietzsche's term, the Hinterwelt, you know, the underworld. There's either like an underworld with kind of something beings in the underworld, and some people try to say, well, it's actually kind of like the Matrix. It's there, but it's not there. But to me, it's like, what's the categorical difference really? Because I mean, Mormons also think their world's really there, that second world.
You ready for the first definition of mysticism?
Yeah.
Belief that union with or absorption into the deity or the absolute, or the spiritual apprehension of knowledge inaccessible to the intellect, may be attained through contemplation and self-surrender. Yes. Queer theory is mysticism.
Yeah, and so from last week to this week, my whole entire thing has been, are atheists also adeists? Because it sure seems like they've given passes to deism.
Yeah,
because deism is perfectly melded into academia. And that's one of the things look at James Lindsay's Sovereign Nations point today. He's going to come out more, but he's talked some other stuff about it. He's brought up a lot about it. And he's saying, like, we've had a strange passenger with us this whole entire time. And that strange passenger has been a religion. It's been there with us the whole time. And Vervaeke even says it himself, is like, it's the spiritual grammar of the West. And we all maybe kind of fall into it or do it accidentally sometimes. And there are philosophers. Well, so Nietzsche and different people like Gerson, these people who like accumulate philosophy, they only really call stuff that's doing that Platoism stuff philosophy, and they call anybody else who's trying to escape it kind of an anti-Platoism. So you have the analytic philosophers or the naturalistic philosophers, which the same guys who pointed out that the same pragmatism guys, they also came up with a bunch of philosophy called naturalistic philosophy. You got Quine and William James too went into this a lot, himself and C.S. Pierce. They tried to make an explanation of the world, saying that science is the starting point, and we can prove it before epistemology, before ontology, and it gets kind of brain bending to try to follow what they say about it. And I think they can make like an argument for it. I mean, like one of the points is like slime molds that have no brains can figure out mazes. Does that make sense? Like that's they don't need to construct something to get to the food. But there's a lot more to it, and I can't really regurgitate it really well. But so part of my point is like, why do the atheists or the new atheists allow a certain level of it to things that, I mean, they think is passive or not that big of a deal? And I don't. Then secondly, a lot of them turn to sort of ideologies that uses that and has that at its base. So it's like, if I'm relying on some Mormonism for my theology or something like, or for not my theology, for my just morality or something like that, how is that much different than relying on Plato for some morality? So I don't know, it's definitional maybe, and maybe it doesn't freaking matter any of it. It's just I don't know. I think we just kind of can't escape doing it sometimes, but I do think that we can kind of, to go with Jared's pragmatism, is like the person who thinks that being isn't, or Jared's denial of pragmatism. I think if anybody goes acting like that, those beings aren't transcendent. I think if they care for humans or care for the well-being of a human or think that's important, I think they accidentally think it's transcendent, even if they want to walk around going, nope, I know you're just a meatball, but I've decided to treat you as more. I think maybe they can hold that in their head or remember it here or there, but I think they will most times, this is the Peterson thing, act as if that's a transcendent being and more important than just a meatball that can feel pain. That's just, I don't know. But I don't know. But part of the things I'm saying, and one of the things I point out to James Lindsay, what's James Lindsay and Boghossian doing? James Lindsay and Boghossian are going harder into atheism. They're reconciling with religion in weird ways, but they're actually the ones who are going and picking on people who brought these weird religious precepts into science. And so who's going hard into the atheism and who's actually curbing off of it? That's just my question.
Yeah, no, because that's the thing. Ironically, it was something that John Larson kind of put to bed for me 10 years ago. Because I remember it was him that said, it doesn't matter. The answer doesn't matter. Is there a God? It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't make a difference. Obviously,
it does get a little bit into the realm of totally predeterminism or not.
I guess so. I mean, well,
they're usually
does it because there's that purely deterministic worldview that the Big Bang, that's the start, and then the machine unwinds, and that's that.
Yeah. So I think Platonism and all that stuff's been around for 2,000 years, and so there's part of a hard part of this whole thing is putting it into words something that's been toyed with. I'll make this joke, just imagine that, I don't know, Peterson or somebody was a person at that time, and then you had 2,000 some hundred years of people emphasizing, tweaking, turning one part to 11, turning another part to 11, marrying one part to this other religion, marrying another part to this religion, and marrying. And so it just gets almost kind of impossible as a category to talk about. And so I think some people have kind of only really leaned onto the rational part of Plato here and there, or really leaned into Aristotle because they thought that he kind of based himself in the real world a bit better. But this stuff here with Larson, if we go through it, so we were talking about he gets into this theory that the only reason Mormons are staying is because of normalcy bias. But I promise you, if you listen to the whole episode, I don't know if I'll be able to pull the moments. Maybe I can, because it's a little hard to search for them in these live streams. But he gets to reciting scripture to the Mormons all the time, which it drives me nuts when they're trying to hold people to their feet to their own fire. But the way John preaches it and the way it comes out his mouth sure seems like he believes the transcendent truth of the thing that he's talking about. Oh, look, does this have today's topic, intro, recap? Anyway, I stand by my $10,000 bet if anybody wants to float that to him.
That there will still be a Great Salt Lake in 5 years?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but he'll say it's because of him. That because of
no, that's what I was saying. That's they always do this with what was it? Wasn't it in 2015 the polar ice caps were supposed to have been melted according to Al Gore? And now anytime you bring that up, they're always like, oh, it's because of all the drastic climate change aversion efforts that we've.
So this is one of the things that they start doing, they get into evolutionary psychology here, and that's one of the areas. So we'll back off just to like not be in the constant like debate with Forrest on this, because I agree with Flip it, and I think Forrest probably agrees with this too. Is like in the end of it, who really cares? I just kind of wish a lot of these other atheists wouldn't buy into things that are obviously religious. They're but at the same time too, I can understand even with their stuff, with trans stuff, I can understand a level of I'm going to allow you your thing to not cause harm. There's levels of it. There's levels of it everywhere, and I there's some of that I can allow in the trans world. There's some of that I can allow with with anything. I don't have to like. That's kind of my point of bringing up the Martin Luther King thing. And part of the thing with Martin Luther King is it's obviously the transcendent ideology. And no, I don't think that's a one-to-one for like there's golden plates out there. But Martin Luther King, this guy's whole thing is like you should base your perception of a person off the content of their character. Okay, that's a great overarching idea, and I think a lot of our current day ethics can be built and thought around that, and the Civil Rights Act and things like that, and our modern mythology around that. I think it's a good thing to hold on to. But if I'm going to use that metric, I have to judge Martin Luther King as a bad person.
Yeah.
If I look at most of the stuff that he did in his life, of course, if we're just going to criticize everything. But does Martin Luther King being a bad person take away from the transcendent idea? No. And I think there's a lot of transcendent ideas in Mormonism that have worked and work well and work for people. And does it mean Joseph Smith was a good person or a prophet or whatever? No, it doesn't. It's just what are we tearing down or not? But let me see here. So these guys get so scrambled up with their predeterminism and their social constructionism and their evolutionary psychology, because a lot of this episode is talking about how it's like just really baked into your evolutionary psychology that you don't want to be kicked out of the social group, and it's really baked into your evolutionary psychology to minimize threats or to just go along with things, and but always that idea of like predeterminism of well, you're just the way you got baked, and you're acting in the world around the things that are around you, and there's nothing you can do to change it or do anything sort of different. And then they'll get into that stuff about we don't want to talk about the people or get mad at the people about this. It's the system, the systemic system of the thing that did it. But
it was the systems.
They do get into that a lot with this one. They try that anytime they can. Like, no, everything that every individual Mormon does wrong is just a demonstration of how terrible Mormonism is.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just really struggling.
They never say systems, not people. When like a Mormon, I don't know, like dies saving the life of an orphan or some shit like that. So systems, not people. We don't want to give this guy credit because it's the Mormon church that caused him to do that very moral thing.
Yeah. Dang it, I wish I could pull like a moment of it I should have had better moments, but we'll see if we can find something here. But he gets I know a moment. They do kind of start preaching, hey, take it easy on people who are stuck in the middle of this, and which is a little rare for John, although he goes back later and repeats the thing that we were mad at from the start of him screaming at anybody who has their finances tied around some sort of Mormonism, and that they're morally deficient because of that. But
model for understanding not human behavior, because that sounds like we're in a lab. It's a great model for understanding ourselves and how we react to threats. And what we see as threats, and the fact that you're probably not nearly as responsive as you think you are. Yeah. All right.
Or should you be responsive? I mean, that's there was that one episode I was calling him type 2, John, which is a play on words. But one of the type 2 errors that you have is that you're saying something is not there when it is there, and the way John has been like that about things like Antifa and stuff like that, or sometimes he's saying there should be a threat and you should react entirely to the threat, and other times he's saying something's not a threat at all. And I just don't think it follows at all that he's good or in any way better at that than Mormons in any way.
I want to kind of close out, starting the last act here, and I know we have a lot of different people, people who are wondering, people who are faithful, people who observe, but I want to talk to the ex-Mormons for a minute.
Hey, that's us.
We're ex-Mormons, John.
Why? Where's the tears from? Like, why is there tears?
What I want,
he sounds like a general.
I want you to take away from this podcast is the behaviors that we have been talking about are deep cognitive biases in our genetic code.
Oh, nothing is my fault.
That
God.
You free yourself from once you get empathy.
They are not choices. When you start seeing something in the face of a disaster that will take your life, that over and over and over again, that human beings basically do nothing and die, sometimes in horrific ways, should stop.
And sometimes they panic at something that's not a threat and run out of a movie theater and trample each other. And,
sometimes they do really good work.
Stop the presses.
I watch body cam videos all the time, and I'm always stunned.
Oh,
how good the job cops do.
So he does make the appeal right there of like, take it easy on Mormons because they're predetermined, a little bit.
I know.
Like I said,
they can't help it but be bots. We're different. That is a thing that John DeLynn even brings up. Is like, well, what do we say to all the people that aren't the 20% of the awesome people like us?
Yeah.
Be kind to the Mormons. They were predetermined to have less empathy.
This part, I don't know if it's like in line with the general precept of them kind of being a cognitive dissonancy themselves, but I know this one will be fun for Flip.
Except contrary evidence is important, and we're going to talk about cognitive dissonance in a minute. We're going to get more into that.
Okay, cool.
All right, let's talk about the cops.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Talk about cops. Let's do it.
Christ.
All right, so we got 4 examples from police. The way this normalcy bias works. Just to where I come from, I worked for the police department for 4 or 5 years myself, and then I did police software for about another 7 years. So I spent 12 years hanging around cops. So that's how I know some of these figures. Most police deaths do not occur with rookies, nor with the senior veterans. They occur in this sweet spot of about 5 to 10 years of service. If you think about it, it's the officers who have a lot of experience, know what they're doing, are highly competent, and are still full of energy. If you've been on the force 19 years, you're just counting down the days until you can draw that retirement. If you've been on the force 1 year, you're still scared to death, and you are doing everything by the book. It's these guys who this becomes normal for them, like pulling people over in traffic stops, arresting people, going to domestic violence situations. It becomes normalized for them, and they oftentimes will fail to see risks that either the senior officers or the junior officers will see. Second one, if you watch videos of police shootings when they're shooting down,
Watched any of those, Flip? Just Flip there.
You muted, Flip.
I said just a few 100 hours.
primarily black men, let's be clear.
Oh, fuck off. Oh, come on.
Already wrong. Already wrong.
Did you look at any statistics, Mr. I'm an atheist fucking
Go
The evidence.
go to the there are plenty of places on the internet, YouTube channels included, that compile these things. It's
I've seen
mostly black men.
Those guys that compile death videos, what the fuck is wrong with them?
Yeah, that's a whole
in at least half of the videos, if not the majority, you will notice that the person that they gun down actually freezes. They stop. it follows this effect that people in threat will stop, but the police don't see them
Has
obeying
he
their
watched
orders.
these?
They don't interpret it that way, so they shoot them anyway. Because that's
so not.
Oh,
true.
like
What the fuck has he watched?
I've seen some things that you could interpret like that for
yeah,
sure.
out of millions. Of
I've seen some that you could interpret like that, but that's the norm. No,
So
That's what they're-
I got added to this insane Facebook group where they put like these death videos in these crazy compilations, and it's
on
It's
Facebook.
horrifying.
I thought Facebook nuked all that stuff.
so what they do is they nest them in the comments, right? Like they're like, here's what's gonna be in the video, and then they comment on it and they reply to their own comment like 3 times, and finally in like the 4th reply they put the actual video, and that's I guess how they hide it from Facebook. But it's like, yeah, it's kind of just like watch people die on Reddit. Or those best gore things from before. But like I watched a lot of these videos of these like either cops getting shot or cops shooting people. You don't see that moment where they freeze. It's always very abrupt. It's always just like, oh fuck, now he's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'm not sure. Like, yeah, what he's. It doesn't comport with my experience with watching police body cam stuff.
This whole entire thing is to like make the point that Mormons are staying in the church because it's a fright response.
They're afraid. That's the thing. Why would you be afraid of something you no longer believe in? And so I've recently discovered I think I'm just different than some people. Some people are different than me, and that like when they leave the church and they do things that the church said were sinful, they get afraid for some reason, and I just have to take them at their word because I never had that.
Yeah.
Like I never felt guilty for drinking alcohol because I was like, well, the person that told me that drinking alcohol was a sin, he was wrong, so it's okay. So I just have to trust these people that say that they go through this guilt shit.
I should include the forest. One of the things I will include in mysticism are people who don't believe God is made yet. That in this transhumanist way, listen to the transhumanists on John DeLynne's podcast, or these alchemists, or even Marxism, is they believe we are in the process of creating the God, which is, to me, that's still a mysticism. The God's not in existence yet. We're bringing him about, and I don't see that as any less supersonic bonko.
Oh, Kevin's here. Kevin's
Kevin.
afraid of leaving.
But
don't leave, Kevin.
But I agree with Savvy D here. What he's saying is like the same sort of question you can ask about any sort of general big giant group that everybody's playing along with it. Like, why don't you leave it? Why are you still in it? You know, and I think that's also kind of one of the bigger points of it. But let's get back to Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy.
Geared up to do. The third one, when police go lights and sirens, if you watch the videos from that, a huge number of people, a surprising number of people, don't speed up and they don't pull over. They just stop. They'll actually take their feet off the gas pedals and their cars will just start coasting. They completely freeze and again go docile when they're faced with this threat of the lights and sirens behind them. And then the most recent tragic example is from the shooting down in Texas. What was the city on with the little children? Oh, they're all with the little children. That's not.
They're all with little children.
The SWAT team stood outside for an hour.
Oh, right,
Uvalde.
right.
Uvalde. Thank you. So this same thing with those cops. Here are these guys. You can get on the website and see their pictures and them all geared up and all this kind of stuff. And then when they're faced with an actual threat, the cops just started milling around. Is that because cops are bad people? No, it's because they're human beings, and that is like the programmed response.
So wait,
is that when you're facing
we shouldn't be mad at the Uvalde cops for not rushing in to save children.
Like, okay, I mean, I'm not even saying we should or should not be mad at the Uvalde cops. Just number one is that response isn't typical and the idea that is stupid because we have other examples, but also like that appears to be a command failing. Like
Yeah.
that
It was
like
just like
that was a failure. But the idea that this was like, you know,
there
because
were
there's something
some
systemically wrong with policing is
there
what
were
makes
some
people want to
people
be
and
like,
some
no.
cops raring to go in. They were there.
That was a command breakdown for sure.
And then it goes back to the razor fist one. Is like maybe sometimes top down authority is full of shit, John Larson.
Yeah, but like there's there's plenty of other examples you can find. Like no, the police, you know, the other thing that bugs me about all this stuff is that like they always play this game where they act like they don't know why they don't. I've brought it up before, but like they act that police procedure is just arbitrary. That they just sit around going like, how can we oppress poor and brown people today? And then they come up with like, oh, I know, we'll put them on the ground and put our knees on their backs. Like, no, this is all stuff from lessons learned, you know, through hundreds of years of experience, you know, of what can go wrong.
Yeah. So I actually have a friend who he spent the last few years being a cop in North Carolina, right?
Whoa.
In the shittiest part of the shittiest city, right? Like he was in just a terrible place, right? And I've talked to him a little bit about it. It sounds depressing, right? To just be in those places where you're hated by everybody. And it's no wonder cops have like a higher alcoholic rate when they're in those areas. It's funny though, because he comes to Idaho Falls. He came back to be a cop here, and he said it's almost too much, the amount of people who come up and like, thank you for the service that you give us. Like, thanks for protecting us or whatever. And he's like, just let me do my job.
Yeah. So I think that he finished on the police right there. Let's listen to Kara go after Quick Media.
Oh, thank God.
Was on the old Quick channel by Greg Mattson, who's a very conservative Mormon YouTube guy.
Oh, that's CWIC.
It's one of the things.
Is he very conservative? Is it true that he's very conservative?
He had a good interview with Steve Pinecker this week on Mormon Book Reviews, and Steve Pinecker is a gay man, and they got along swimmingly well. As a
that doesn't sound very conservative.
Steve Pinecker can talk to people. That's why we're always singing his praises. It's because he can fucking talk to these people without belittling them and
he must not be very conservative.
Plus, he listens to what other people's ideas and thoughts are.
Well, he's an interviewer. Steve Pinecker is an interviewer. John DeLane is no longer an interviewer. He used to be. He used to ask people about their insane ideas, things that he thought were absolute batshit. And listen to them tell him their insane batshit ideas without chastising them for having insane batshit ideas. We're actually listening to you so that you show us people with insane batshit ideas. But when you chastise them, it's like chastising somebody for believing that like Santa actually exists or the Smurfs actually exist. Like I don't need you to chastise somebody for believing that Papa Smurf is a real person. Okay, I want to hear his side. Shut up for a second. And Steve Pinecker does that. He's great.
Yeah, and I think these guys are just so insular, like they really have no other ideas. And so she's listening to Quick's channel, and I think it's kind of interesting to hear her regurgitate the one time she listened to Quick, like what she got. But through that episode I was just listening to before I came on that was live tonight about the Mormon gay rescue and all that stuff, they dropped the term about 700 times that liberal progressive Mormons are nuanced Mormons. And I do not think they're nuanced at all. Maybe they have to like come up with some Dan McClellan construals to make their stuff make sense. But I think Greg is way more nuanced than most of those people who are just buying and gobbling up the new neoliberal mind virus.
Absolutely.
Mind virus.
Like Greg is more nuanced than nuanced. Yeah.
And he was talking about why people leave the church, and he was saying it's not what you think. It actually starts, and it kind of had this Fox News era to it. It's the wokeness. It's that people are going through the filter of racism, through the filter of sexism, and then projecting that onto everything that has to do with the church and polygamy.
That is exactly correct.
This idea
Yep.
that
just nailed
everything that is progressive, everything has to be viewed through this filter. So you have this bias that if somebody's telling you something, and they have, this happened to me, so happened to me 3 years ago. I was a very conservative Mormon girl, that if whoever was telling it to me looked like they were like, could be a member of Antifa or something, like I have a bias against looking at people who look the way that I do, the way that, like, you know, my Provo, Utah friends look. I don't take information from people because of the way.
Do you think that you look like Antifa?
She said anybody who looked like Antifa, she was against when she was.
I think she means like looks like
but nowadays that she gets treated that way.
No, she said anybody who looks like me looks like somebody from Antifa.
I know, but I think she was saying like in. I think she was saying as in the context of when she was a conservative.
Yeah. She's saying when I was a conservative, I had a bias against anybody who looks like Antifa, like me. Like anyway, that's not a good.
It's so funny that Fox News dropped because Jacob Hansen showed me a video earlier.
That Fox News drop, like.
No, she just says that he sounds like he's Fox News.
No, I know, but like when she says that,
say.
like I always say that, and I'm like, I just feel like I always want to be like, okay, show me. I'm calling your bluff. I'm calling your bluff. It just actually
happened to me earlier.
Show me the Fox News clip that you're talking about, where Fox News totally misrepresents something about progressive woke ideology. Show me.
From talking with Jacob Hansen, I guess some other channels, because Jacob gets more views from other atheists and stuff online, and so they clipped stuff out of it and pointed it. And they pointed to something where there was people in the comments saying that he says critical theory comes from Marxism. Okay, Fox News.
Okay, Fox News and Wikipedia and all those guys from Frankfurt School.
Smarty pants.
That they look, because I'm like, well, where did they go to school? Like, what kind of biases do they have of like dragging me down? And then you add on to that feeling of like, and plus what they're saying makes me feel icky.
So one of the premises, I mean, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but this is one of my.
Has this problem that Kara thinks that she has this problem that she believes that conservatives tend to be about as shitty as she was as a conservative. It's like, no, Kara, conservatives aren't like you. You're just shitty.
I've expressed this before. I'm very like I get worried every time I listen to Kara Burrell speak, because I think, do I just project onto Mormons as a whole what I was as a Mormon in the same way that she projects what she was as a Mormon? Because when I think of Mormons, I'm like, they thought gays were sinning, but they didn't think that like gay people were like should have less rights or whatever. And whenever she talks about it, she's like, yeah, all Mormons think that gay people are like spawn of Satan and they're purposely like trying to fuck over God's plan or whatever. I'm like, were we both just projecting different types of Mormons? I don't know. Am I projecting?
Well, one of the ways I project, and I know that I'm wrong about it, is that all Mormons still believe that they did in the 90s and 80s. Like that has altered a whole lot. And I think some of them still hold to it. I think Jacob Hansen, that's what we brought it up before. We think Jacob kind of holds to what we thought it was back in the 90s and whatever. But there's all sorts of them going down. And it's been one of my long-standing things of pointing at is that that thing they say about conservatives and liberals is that the Mormon church, the bureaucracy at the top, is just going the same direction John DeLynn is at the speed limit. You know, they're all kind of moving in that same direction because they're falling in with the dialectic and all that sorts of stuff, which is part of half of my thing is like when John DeLynn goes talking about how Mormons are and act, and the Salt Lake Mormons I know, and how they're not like that at all anymore is part of what irritates me about them. But there's another level of it too, is that I think they should hold on to some of the older stuff that they just give up willingly left and right, you know, and they're just going along with it. They end up going along with it, unfortunately. But I think that's all kind of a lost cause. I mean, I think it's just happening. It's just going to happen. Like I am black pilled about that. I really am. Like I don't think Mormons. I think the jury's out on how many of the top bureaucrats are on board with it going down that direction of just joining up with the new world religions and all that sort of stuff. And we could pull stuff where they really are in talks and with those new world religions about joining up together and who knows what's what. But some of them, if not half of them, I think for sure are. And I don't know how they pull out of it. You know, they don't.
And I want to go back to my safe place where we're having,
I think Quick's kind of holding on to stuff and saying like, hey, let's get off this identity stuff. And his last several videos are just kind of posting L after L after L. I mean, in the sense of like, hey, look, they're promoting the flag at the gay rights flag at Seal, and they're promoting this over here at this thing. They're promoting these new books. There's this new they're just going the route.
At what point? At what point does Greg just say this is all bullshit? Like I love Greg and I love what he's doing, but like at what point? Because it's really, really difficult when you are a believing Mormon, because it's sort of like part of Mormonism is this is the last dispensation, right? It's not like, the gospel has fallen away from the church, but it's not falling away again. That's what we've been told. So you can never say as a Mormon, like, this we've fallen away. Maybe we'll get the truth back again. So I don't know, like, where does he go once all of BYU's fallen off?
Well, I think that's something that's a great big open plane to discuss in Mormon stories in the ex-Mormon world, and where a lot of ex-Mormons might pop up from a whole different direction than the unidirection that we get from John DeLynn. Like that,
I hope he pops up on Mormon stories. That'd be amazing.
But he won't. I mean, they asked him. But what I'm saying there is like Mormon stories is supposed to be the stories of people who are battling or struggling with or moving on from Mormonism. And a huge part of that, like we pointed out before, is there's a bunch of disillusioned divorced dads that don't get covered, or there's a lot of people who and I talked to some of them directly. They'll message me. There's people who got disillusioned from the right wing side and are getting disillusioned from the right wing side. And supposedly, if they want to have everybody advance from Mormonism, they're just leaving that wide open. Like Forrest yourself, you could go after the way the church is just becoming more and more and more neoliberal. Why are you still following this? Like, why is that nobody's angle? Why is nobody in ex-Mormonism's angle saying, look, these guys are just going along with the Lynn. Why do you trust them?
Totally totes. Have you got lots more stuff?
Rice Krispie squares in the Relief Society room, and you add all of that's concoction up. It makes it really easy.
My point with this is describing of it is like, how do you take in? How are you even taking in podcasts? Are you even hearing the points?
Easy to not be able to internalize any information, not think for yourself, and then be like, I'm going to rely on the authority figures. They just said, doubt your doubts, follow the prophet. And that feels so much better. And you can just demonize everybody else who gives you any other icky feeling. And I just think it's so funny that the YouTube channel I was watching, like, he's like, the people are leaving the church because they are listening to the wrong types of people. They're getting in this woke crowd. They're paying attention to sexism and racism. And that's just kind of how the church is. You need to stop looking through those filters. I'm like,
that's what we think of when we say woke. We say, oh, these motherfuckers care about women's rights. Ugh.
Super nuanced.
She's so nuanced.
Yeah, that's it. It's been one of my long-standing claims, and I can't back this up with data, but I think it's true that I think when everything was about truth claims, like the stuff that concerns Forrest, when everything was about that and mostly about that 20, 30 years ago, they didn't have much success deconverting people. But once it all became moral and part of joining a new moral order, that's when all the success came.
In the light of Kara's comment. Sorry, I didn't. I thought you were wrapping up. I don't know if I cut you
No,
off.
no, no.
But I would really love to know her opinion on like the problem of the Sentinelese people on North Sentinel Island. I think that we talked about them a little bit the last time or episodes ago.
I know what her answer would be. Her answer would be the white guy was the asshole for bringing disease to them.
No, not even that necessarily. But what should we do about those people? Because like, I'm just guessing that they don't have a concept like women's rights. I'm just gonna guess that that's not a thing on North Sentinel Island. I'm just guessing that there's no reproductive rights. There is no access to abortion.
It's
on
the
North
same
Sentinel
difficult.
Island.
It's the same
So
difficult.
should we go
issue.
colonize them and save them from their nightmare society that they live in, where they don't have?
No, for
any
sure,
of the
for
things
sure.
that-
I don't
mean,
understand
sexism
how.
is rampant. I'm sure.
I don't understand how these people don't become more interventionist, because it's the same issue that all of these people have with all of these non-Western societies, because Westernism, and I've even heard Destiny make this claim that, like, fuck off, America is the most progressive country in the entire world. Okay, you try to act like America is this third world shithole in regards to progressivism. No, we're progressive as fuck. All right, like watch Jonathan Streeter's documentaries that he's coming out with on transgenderism in Poland.
Yeah.
Right, like those are European countries that are supposed to be the pinnacle of progressivism. We're more progressive than them. They figured out that this shit is terrible
Where
way
would you
before
rather
we
be
did.
gay?
Right.
Where would you rather be gay in the world?
But that's one of the points of neoliberalism, because inside the Lobsters group and other places, we've had people saying, "What is even neoliberalism?" And the point is, it's just the same thing as the neocons, who are just going around saying, "Hey, we need to bring our values to the whole entire world of capitalism." Well, the neoliberals are the ones who are just doing the same thing, but this time they're chucking it in on the back of this big moral concept that everybody's got to be down with the gays, and everybody's got to be down with the LGBT, and everybody's got to be down with the women's rights and that sort of stuff.
It's not even down with the gays. It's like just that thing I just
Yeah,
saw.
not down, like the full embracing of the.
Because like, it's like the whole thing about the whole pride flag thing, the rainbow flag, because what it has become, because it used to be that the rainbow flag was a symbol that you were into inclusivity. That's what it used to be. But now it's this whole thing where it's like, it's the sign that you don't hate gays. Because if you don't wave it, then you probably hate gays. And if we ask you to wave it and you say anything but okay, now we know you hate gays. And like, yeah, they've absolutely turned it into that sneaky dialectic trap now. Like they always do.
They had that dude from the hockey league who got in trouble, and they had all the commentators freaking out. That
although I guess apparently, like always, it backfired and his jersey sold out. Although that's another one where Babylon B hit it out of the park, and like, I'm a soccer fan, but I appreciate the joke where he said, like, hockey players said if he wanted to support gays, he'd play soccer instead.
Yeah.
I'm such a hockey fan now.
But the thing is, like, if we get back to Mindy Kaling and all that sorts of stuff too, is our issue is that the gays and the LGBTs are the pawns in that. You know, it's not that they're the bad people. They're the pawns being used by virus M.4241, whatever, you know, and the Lynn and Larson, all them. I really view it as they are a new religion. And if you go back and listen to what I posted from Yarvin, who gets into the taxonomy of like, are flightless birds not flightless? Like they claim they don't have like a god or something, you know, they're still a religion, and they're just a genealogy. They're the next Puritan form of whatever was going on with this. And then we must bring it to the world and whatever. Let's listen to Kaepernick, and we don't even know what it says here.
I don't know what this is. I sent it because I was scrolling through Facebook in the middle of this. I got this sponsored ad. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know anything about it.
Killing County.
Maybe it sucks. I'm sorry if it sucks.
Where's the volume? What did he say?
I didn't hear
This is one of the most powerful projects I've ever been involved with.
Whoa.
Like, is it in your top 10 most powerful projects?
That makes it like at least.
He sounds like the
very-
Morgan. So Morgan and I have a category. Like we have a few categories when we watch shitty movies, right? And one of the categories is the director's daughter. Like we always, and I think in this specific film, Colin Kaepernick was the director's daughter.
Look, there's got a whole production company now called K Kaepernick from the executive producer Kaepernick.
Man, he's 2/3 of the way to KKK. Oh.
And Lynn did say in those episodes with Chanel, "Oh, you must accept the Kaepernick framing and all that stuff directly.
yeah.
You're a bad person."
Emergency. I'm hearing all kinds of gunshots down the street from my house.
I had never known Bakersfield to be a violent place. That changed pretty quickly.
Whoa.
I came here looking.
I'm just pausing. I don't know if they'll get in trouble for showing it.
I knew the homicide
trailer.
rate
These are okay,
Yeah, they'll
right?
still do it.
in Bakersfield was high. I didn't really know what that
Yeah,
meant
just for even like the music in it or something.
until I got here.
I'm not trying to be nobody.
2 people are dead and a BPD officer is in the hospital following an early morning shooting at a Southwest
So
Bakersfield.
is it gonna be about shooting stuff?
White cops, white cops.
I just Googled it. Bakersfield, California has a crime rate of 48 per 1,000 residents, and it has one of the highest crime rates in America compared to all communities of all sizes.
Well, let's make sure they get rid of the cops.
So I guess let's
That'll be
see what he
helpful
wants
tomorrow.
to do with Bakersfield.
Man, oh man. Anyway.
Well, who holds these people accountable? Guess what? They met their match.
I'm sure they met.
Wait a minute. They met their match at what? Like all
Holding
these
them
people
accountable,
trying
yeah.
to, all these
Sure,
people
accountable.
trying to hold criminals accountable. They met their match.
So, anyway. The message, the global homogenation neoliberal message. It's upon us.
So
And
what's your do you have an example of a piece of media that hid the message but then like out of nowhere struck you with it? Right? That kind of sounds like what you were going for with this.
Oh yeah,
With the
did
whole
you ever see one where you're like,
with the whole Trojan horse thing where you didn't expect the message? Because Morgan and I have this category also of films that we call last minute Jesus, where where it's like a romance film, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere they're like, God loves you, and oh my God, it's last minute Jesus. That is our favorite.
That's a good genre. I know. I get the feeling
where's
like
the last minute one?
I can't bring it to mind, but I get the feeling that there was something where I'm like, I think the show's okay, and then like 6 episodes in, like, oh, there it is, there it is.
This wasn't like, I mean, so this show here, and one of the things that drives me nuts about it, it's called The Menu. It's on HBO.
Is it good? Oh, is it on HBO?
Yeah, it's all right, but the problem is with it is like people who you might even think or whatever, people who are aware of the message were all, this one's great, this one's up, this one, so like I got like a recommendation from people who are avoidant of the message, you know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, well, let's watch it, this will be good. And it's it's like a horror version, all that stuff. This shit is straight up the proletariat rising. That's all it is. Like 100%, 100%, 1,000,000%. Like it maybe it sneaks up on you because it's kind of like hidden in it from the behind, but no, and it's not even subtle about that. I'm not saying that you can't get enjoyment or entertainment out of the movie because it just turns into like a meal.
Like
a horror thing.
The suppressed class uprising is an old story in human storytelling and reality, But like, there is absolutely. I don't know. Usually, can tell
the message is there, like the message, like it's 100% there, but it's fine. You can watch and all that stuff. But what caught me off worse about it is that so many people are like so strapped for ideas and for things that are good movies. They say, "Oh, check this one out," and some of the people who might be averse to the message are still like, well, you're still gonna get the message, but at least there's some good stuff in there. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like with the boys. I still like the boys, but it's got the message.
I just started rewatching Tampopo.
I love Tampopo.
I just started watching it again, and like it hurts my heart that nothing remotely that good is being made nowadays. And and part of it, like when I look at that movie, where I look like you can tell they didn't have a huge amount of money, and how efficient they are with the sets and the camera work and everything.
It's such a good show.
So good. I'm also thinking like I think it might be the best Western ever, but it's set in 1988 Tokyo, and it's all about noodles.
Well, I don't know. Have you seen Bone Tomahawk?
Oh, that guy's a good guy. That director's a good director.
I don't know.
He also, but he's kind of been subverted over to being like he's a subversive director, because now he has to just work with Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson, the conservative.
I haven't seen Directed Cost.
I just saw it this last week, and it's great. Good? Oh yeah.
Okay. So there's Bone Tomahawk was his first movie, and it was fucking awesome. It was one of my favorite movies ever. That's a Western movie. I watched the shit out of that movie. It's amazing. His other movie, Brawl in Cell Block 99, was
good.
Fucking great. I'm not sure which one I like more out of the two. It's
Cell Block 99 is a bit like magical, like he's got magical strength. You know what I mean? But the Bone Tomahawk is like straight, like you could imagine that kind of happen.
And then his most recent film is Dragged Across Concrete with Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson, and it's about police brutality.
It's good. It's not about police brutality. It's not.
It's not? Okay. I need.
You thought it was.
I've been meaning to watch it since it came out.
You thought maybe it was like maybe he Trojan Horse you, but no. That's just like the two cops in it, and this isn't giving anything away. They are currently they get in trouble from the very beginning for getting called being brutal in like a call out, and they weren't that brutal. So they're just like, screw this. And so then the whole thing is based off of they've got to go get some money because they're being kind of unfairly suspended.
Anyway,
so
watch the shit out of Bone Tomahawk. I think you'll like it.
But being unfairly suspended is just the starting point. You know, it's got nothing to do with the rest of the movie. You know, and the thing is, like with that movie, both those movies, every one of those movies, like in Bone Tomahawk, the woman in it is like an old timey doctor. Like the thing that's always like wild about this stuff is that you can do diversity 100% right. You just put them in there and don't have it be like it has to be like stop and notice it. Let's stop it and out.
And besides Bone Tomahawk has one of the most brutal scenes I've ever seen in any movie. Like that you know what scene I'm talking about. It was disgustingly brutal, and I love that whole fucking. It's great.
Yeah, they get kidnapped by some
Patrick Wilson, and I want him to be in more shit because Fargo season 2 is probably my favorite thing that ever happened on TV.
Have you ever seen Angels? Have you ever seen Angels in America?
No.
Patrick Wilson plays a gay Mormon.
The Mormon?
Does he really?
Yep.
So, okay, so Pat, you got to watch. Okay, Flip. I think you would like Fargo, the TV
Fargo's
series.
great.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It is my favorite TV series. So I need to try season 4 again.
I can't. The premise is just I couldn't get far. The premise is just too hard. The premise is
Fargo's always weird, man. Fargo's always weird. So I'm gonna give it another chance.
What Screamo Town is Fargo on?
I think it's on Hulu.
Yeah.
Is it on Hulu?
Yeah.
I can get you logged into it.
Is it the kind of show that you can get away with halfway watching while you play video games?
No,
you gotta watch that one. But
it's watch the shit out of it.
But that one's also like it's complete. Each series is a complete show, so you don't have to.
Yeah, each season you don't have to. Each season is a different cast of people.
Doesn't matter at all.
It'll have any
rewards.
Slight.
Season 3.
Season 3 little rewards of layers for watching. They reward watching, but you don't have to watch.
Yeah. So season 2 has some callback to season 1 because one of the old guys in season 1.
But you would not need to watch season 1.
Yeah, you wouldn't need to watch it. And then in season 3, there's one character from season 1 that comes back. But really, to get the whole moral you don't need to watch it.
Yeah, it's so good.
But anyway, Patrick Wilson is the main character in season 2, and season 2 is probably my favorite of all of Fargo. It's close though, but he's also the main character in Bone Tomahawk, and that's on like that would be on the top 5 list of my favorite movies of all time.
So I'm a big Watchmen fan. He's in Watchmen. He plays.
He's great. Yeah, he's good in Watchmen. Yeah.
A lot of people didn't like what I love Watchmen.
I need to watch it again. I know I liked it a lot more than everybody else when it came out.
Speaking of Watchmen, if you get into Alan Moore, you find out that a bunch of the stuff that he wrote. This is the same with Neil Gaiman and all these other sorts of guys. That Alan Moore is a believer in Kabbalah. And he has all these weird mystical beliefs. And his series Promethea is the whole entire thing is every single person is almost kind of like a representative or an archetype of Kabbalah mysticism. But this is also true of what's it called? Like the Golden Compass is true of Neil Gaiman Sandman and all this sorts of stuff. Like all these guys, they've written out and put into it all of this mysticism that comes from the same places of all those other things I've been talking about. And you can see like how mystical it can get, you know. But 2 of the best shows I've seen in the past 5 years. Coen Brothers. I think Coen Brothers are secretly super based. Like super, like every single one of their shows. If you watch them and get through it, like you see like Burn After Reading. But Hail Caesar is the most slept on show around. And the whole thing is about how the McCarthy era is a bit right, that commies tried to infiltrate Hollywood and basically did infiltrate Hollywood.
Yeah.
And
did you ever watch The Death of Stalin?
Yep, that's the other one I was going to say. It's great. I was just recommending it to
is that
Marty.
Coen Brothers?
That is no. It's so good.
I thought so because it feels a lot like Burn After Reading.
Yeah.
I just learned about, don't have any idea where to find it, but I just learned about a documentary that was apparently a big hit in Russia from like 15 years ago. And it's a mockumentary, like it's like a found footage mockumentary about how the Soviets actually secretly landed a man on the moon in 1938. and how they covered it up, and the guy actually like comes back and like has to live in obscurity because he's like it's all been covered up by Stalin's purges, and it sounds like a really great show.
That sounds good.
That's an awesome premise.
I wonder if I can find it.
I still need to watch it. Everything, all the time, everywhere, or whatever that show is.
So
yeah, all the stuff everywhere.
That's starting to get a lot more shit by the more right-wing people. But
wow.
I don't know what it is, man. Like,
yeah,
I don't hate left-wing messages in shows. I hate when they're.
No, it's not a left-wing message. It's not. It's Everything Everywhere All at Once is my favorite movie of at least the last 5 years, maybe more. I liked it even more than I liked Jojo Rabbit, and I fucking love Jojo. What is that one on?
What channel is Everything Everywhere All the Places? What channel?
Oh, I don't know.
It's not on every streaming everywhere all at once. It's only on one streamer.
We purchased it on YouTube because we loved it so much. I love that fucking movie. It did things for my marriage. I'm not even kidding you. Like
I've been wanting to watch it.
It's so completely anti-nihilist.
Yeah.
I love the fucking movie. It's amazing. I can't praise it enough.
I think if everybody watched Coen Brothers and realized that they were hinting at all sorts of stuff all the way through it, Hell Caesar's a little bit more direct, but stuff like what's that one? The lady killers. That one, like if you watch the whole thing, Tom Hanks plays a professor who's constantly talking about his praxis, and he's constantly talking about his praxis, but in the end of all things, all he's really doing is putting together a multicultural group of people to rob a bank, you know. There's a bunch of subtle hints and all that. The Burn After Reading, the whole entire thing is how the CIA,
I saw that one
has their heads up their ass, and that's all.
Yeah, I watched that one when I worked in the theater. Now, so you should watch Brawl in Cell Block 99 because, that was actually the first time I ever saw Vince Vaughn in a dramatic role, and he did amazing in it. He has one of the most relatable scenes I've ever seen in my entire life is when there's a couple of them. There's one where he beats his wife cheats on him, so he beats the shit out of his car, and that's actually Vince Vaughn breaking his fists on an actual car, and it's pretty amazing.
Wow.
But also
he's good and dragged across concrete too.
I want to watch it because he's great in this one, and he has that scene where he's talking about going to he goes on his way to work every day. He goes to the gas station to get coffee, and he's like, there's 3 different things. There's 3 different creamers, and there's only one creamer that I want. And every single time I pick up a creamer, it doesn't matter how many times I do it, it's always the wrong one. It's always the wrong one. And I just want for once for the creamer to be the right one the first time I pick it up. And it never happened. And it's one of the most relatable.
That's what I walk through in life. That's why I call myself Charlie Brown. I have to time. But there's so many things like that. My Facebook memory today was, if you have an earphone and one side's broken, one isn't. I don't know when I wrote this. It was years ago. The way that you can guess which one, always know which one it is it's always the one that you didn't choose. No matter, it's just every single time. But I always kind of play with like weird ideas like that you kind of realize are magical thinking or weird. And I like to notice when I do
my
things
dumb
like
joke about how I don't ever bother looking for anything because I'm so bad at it because it's always in the last place I look.
That's where you're gonna look. That's when you stop looking. I have this weird metaphysical belief that people are designed to run into you, and it's based in nothing. but my bias, my cognitive biases, or something like that. You walk around a gym or something, and I'll see somebody like this guy walking right here. He's gonna bump into me right there. And it does not matter if I slow down or speed up, he's going to find some way to get in my way when we connect into each other. But
I don't believe in knitting. Like I think knitting is a conspiracy because I don't believe that anybody can. I don't believe you can make a shirt out of sticks and string.
And you're not going to go try to figure out. We're not going to get to the bottom of this one.
I'm not going to get to the bottom of that.
I don't want to
make
know.
a whole shirt out of sticks and string.
I don't want to know what ghosts and demons hide underneath all this.
I gotta get going. Do you have?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna say watch this one. Tell me, everybody, pay attention to this one and see if I'm right about this one or not. If you're walking on the road and somebody stops to check their phone up in front of you, then you're gonna walk past them. They will stop and they will start walking with you right when you pass them. That's pay attention to that one. See if that one's real. I would run.
Here's a question that
there's a lot of herd.
This is the thing that feminists seem to think is a thing recently, is that men have a more difficult time getting. So men will not get out of your way when they're walking, but women will.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not true.
That's not
true. No,
it's
not.
No.
Go walk around casinos for 10 minutes.
Go anywhere. Like if you're in the supermarket and somebody has got their cart perpendicular across the aisle, blocking it up, 70% of the time.
Shuffle across and wait for you to do it. But
for sure.
I
had this conversation with Morgan earlier because there seems to be this. I don't know. She listens to all these insane feminists, mostly to make fun of them and shit like that. But like, all these feminists talk about how I didn't get out of the way of men, and I bumped into several people today. And I'm like, no, that's not the way it is. Even like Dostoevsky pointed this out. This is in the early 1800s. My favorite thing he ever wrote probably was Notes from the Underground. There's a part where the underground man, he decides that he's just like, there's this boss, this alpha male type guy, his boss that he has, who never, ever, ever gets out of his way. And the underground man decides, I'm gonna not get out of his way. And he keeps trying to do it, and he gets out of his way at the last minute. He juts out of the way. And finally, he decides to do it, and he bumps into the guy, and it's nothing. The guy's just like, oh.
You built a sandcastle.
And then moves on. This guy, that's nothing to this person. You bump into him and he moves on. And you're like, I really wanted him to be mad at that. and these are both men. But now feminism has decided that's only a thing that men do, and they do it to women. They won't get out of your way if you're a woman.
If I had a nickel for every time this happened on my mission, but I mean, casinos is one of the places, because I lived in Vegas for a long time and worked around some of them, is one of the main places you'll see it happen. But there is so many times where you're walking at an obviously fast upper pace, like you're going fast, and some woman, elderly woman, sees you coming, like she knows you're there, you know you're there, and you know there's like one little lane, and you're going fast, and she has the opportunity to give one stutter step to let you just keep going at that speed, and they will just barge in as slow as they can and make you stop behind them. And I think it's like, if you pay attention to it, they almost like pathologically do it. Like I could tell you, like, I'm not saying that like,
my mom
they're getting away.
pathologically gets in the way. Like that's my mom. This is like real life. It happened all the time where she'd be in the kitchen and she'd call me and she'd be like, "Can you reach this high thing from the cupboard?" And she would be standing in front of the cupboard. And I just stand there and wait, and she'd be talking about something, and then like 30 seconds would go by, and then 45 seconds, be like, "Are you going to get it?" And be like, "You're standing," and go, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that moment where if I was the other person, and I know I've been the other person a million times, the obvious thing to do is just give it a beat and let them pass.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that's just my some of my little weird bugaboos or whatever that don't matter at all. Anyway. Next week or whatever. I agree. I'm sorry for the high-minded, fluting, boring German idealism stuff, but I think James Lindsay and some other people are gonna be going on and on about breaking down like why have we given this shit a pass for so long? And I'm down for it. And but at the same time, just like with religion or just like with anything, like all the philosophy, I think can be, you know, just the same way. It's like people can do it good and people can do it insane. And
we need a special shout out to Evil Apostate for coming on here and roasting the shit out of
Jared, your homework is to watch Tampopo.
Oh, Tampopo was great.
You watch Tampopo with your wife.
Tampopo?
Tampopo. It's a Japanese movie from 1988. It's like the way when I watched it, it was described as Japanese Amelie, except it's all about food.
It's good. It's great.
It's excellent. But it's one of my favorite things ever, and I just was rewatching it. But I need to watch all the places all over the place all the time.
Oh my God, watch it. I love that movie.
Yeah,
so
you had a good day at poker, didn't you, Chris?
Yeah, I did. I went and played and kicked ass and took some names.
It's going to be
because the spirit of the Lord, the Lady of the Lake, was on my side, and she. But anyway,
I gotta get
back out. So wait, before we cut this out, this is not really related. I had this discussion with my brother recently, and he feels kind of the same way as I did. I think we might have talked about this before, but this is a religious thing, right? Where a lot of people who are very, very Mormon, they explain the fact that they're still Mormon in that they had an experience that they couldn't explain any other way. And I want to know if either of you have ever had an experience, a spiritual experience that you couldn't explain any other way than spiritualism.
I had two on than spiritualism. I mean, I don't know if I jumped to spiritualism, but I had some situations that were crazy rare accidents on my mission.
Yeah. Like I had there was one big coincidence, but it could have also just been a coincidence.
So this is dead serious, and I can even bring this companion on who can verify this. On Halloween freaking night, we went into some people's house, and they said they were going to do a seance for us. And we're like, what? They dead serious, like, oh, we're into this stuff. We're going to do a seance. And we're like, okie dokie. And like, we didn't even like think about it or care. So they turned off the light. They didn't turn off lights. They started doing the seance, and in the middle of the seance, all the lights turned off, right?
Oh.
And then they predicted, and not just in our, they turned off in the whole neighborhood, right? So there was maybe not that rare in Mexico, but there was a power outage. So there's a power outage in the middle of the seance, but it's Halloween night, dead serious, or Day of the Dead, they call it in Mexico. when they get done with it, they say that I'm going to be leaving soon. And then my companion, they couldn't read him, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. So we go out of the place, and he said they couldn't read me because I was saying a prayer that the priest would block him or whatever. I was like, really? You know, like, yeah. And I guess stupid non-whatever believer me let it in. But we were like, yeah, but they say I'm leaving. There's no leaving. I'm not leaving. And the next day, I got a call for an emergency transfer to the other side of the mission. And we were like, what? And I 100% can have that other guy verify that whole entire thing. And despite any of that, I still just go, what a bunch of weird stuff. But the other one was...
I don't know. The reason I bring this up is because my brother and I were talking about this recently, where anytime you talk to very LDS people about this stuff, they're like, well, there's just things I can't explain.
No, but they don't want to
have those things, right? And every time they do that, I'm like, no, I've never had a thing that cannot be explained in a completely secular manner. Never, not a single fucking time. And like, I call myself not even an atheist. Like, I call myself like damn near a theist. Like, I think there's a person behind this almost, you know, but there's never been a time when I've been like, yep.
They haven't come down to confirm any of it for you.
No. Why are missionaries so fucking superstitious?
I don't know. Well, this is the other one that I had that was on my mission is like Mexico City. It's hard to describe how many people and how big and how stuff. It's hard to describe. It is loaded with people. And we were looking through our mission book at inactive people, and we were lamenting, like, without these addresses and all this stuff that's shit, and you can imagine how many people got baptized and never popped up ever again, right?
Yeah.
And we saw a name in a family, and like, how the heck would we ever even find these guys? We specifically mentioned them. And of course, as you can imagine, we went walking out, we wandered, and then we stopped and chose a door and knocked on that door, and lo and behold, it was them. And there was nothing to explain. There was nothing that led us there. There was no sort of anything anywhere. But here's one of the flip ends of that is we did some sort of similar action every single day of our lives. Yeah, you know, that's kind of the thing that we did all the time. So like that one time that it hit.
Yeah. You don't count all the times that you're like, well, this time we're gonna every door you knocked on that was a dud. Yeah, you don't count those. But
in Mexico City, it truly is like a needle in a haystack. It truly was like, whoa, you know. But beyond that, like, there's a million chances of that happening every single day we go out kind of doing that stuff. And beyond that too, we found them and nothing happened. They invited us for food or something. And like, if it really was like a faith promoting story, wouldn't have gotten reactivated or baptized.
Yeah, those people, that guy isn't a general authority today.
Nope. So,
alrighty.
Anyways, thanks for chatting. I gotta go walk Charlie Brown.
He's fucking ready, man.
Yeah, he's been
already. We'll see you guys.
Right.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, thanks for it.